Welcome to day 2 of the SCC playoffs. Snake Hunters here have a lot to do in order to get here because they've lost 4 of the 4 games they played up against the counting department.
Ice here before I get into this because it's the stun that connects, and look at the damage from the Thunder, my god! Ice not allowed to participate. Alley blinks right into the ultimate from Rapio, who finds the drop.
Rapio playing that as perfectly as he possibly could. Okeanos, though, in a spot of trouble here. He's going to get pressured now by the Ratatosker, and a beautiful dive rotation out of Rapio.
Then it's Vaporish Coast finding the opening kill in this one onto Okeanos. Rapio looking for somebody from the accounting department that's just a bit overextended here as the Primal Fury is engaged back on. Rapio down into the backline. Wolfie down low, and it's Pretty Prime who finds the executed double from Vaporish Coast. How many times have we seen this? Kalas goes in, Kalas unable to find the engage, and Kalas has to leave. Now it's Rapio trying to close that gap, and he will. Wolfie down first, Kalas down second, Okeanos looking to be the third here as Rapio grabs the triple. Into the fountain he goes.
Absolutely nothing left for Ice to do but watch or possibly die in Team Unison, as the accounting department will fall. 3 members still yet to respond. This is looking like a T2 tower siege that's going to go the way of the accounting department. 4 relatively healthy members from accounting department still standing strong. Vaporish, though, with the flank watch, actually going to try to aggress immediately into the backline, finds Wolfie, but Wolfie going to actually eat a tower shot with that giddy up forward. A nice home run out of Vaporish to buy himself some time, and the respawns are happening.
Coast! Oh, Coast is making a big play here. Now the Snake Hunters able to pull back 3. Incredible. Approaching from the right-hand side of this fight. Deathwalker knocked on back. Pretty Prime, plenty healthy. Wolfie has to use the Aegis. He'll use the beads as well, and Rapio makes it out of the fray alive. Can you say the same for Ice? No, you can't. Kalas has got the chains, but he's got no pulls. Now the re-engage from the Snake Hunters. Closing the gap as Kalas able to barely make his way out. Rapio won't have the range damage, but Wolfie will to return back one. Rapio doesn't find anyone with the dunk. It's a big grouping, though, from the accounting department. Kha'Zix walks on in, but he's found 4 members of the accounting department on the other side. Deathwalker's been left alone. Kalas with the pull finds another couple. Rapio has to dash away, and he'll do so successfully. Vaporish Ghost continues his dare. Gets the first onto Okeanos as Wolfie stunned through. It's a double from Coast, and it looks like game for Snake Hunters in 36 minutes.
Congrats to them once again on their win. Elysium versus Pandemonium's coming up next.
Tricks tank looking to catch Emilzy out of position, but the Waystone's going to stop him from getting plugged back in. There's the ultimate coming through. Emilzy's going to be down at the start of this fight. This time Angry, target of the Judgment. He's going to fall down to Sarpei in the backline. Mid to support so far. Adapting already ult expanded. Raiju is on his back. Get the heal up after killing Joshi there in these puddles. 2 for 2 trade. Makes 2 people run away from him. Streak up already expended the ult though. And all the way back here is my boy Terrorim. Gonna get blown up by the ult from Raijin and Nemesis. But Spudio is gonna be able to find his own kill as well on to Streak up. Down he falls. Connor running away from the ultimate damage from Baba. Yaga blinking forward again is Sarpei trying to find a little bit more damage onto Angry, but it looks like Elysium don't really care. They're going for the end, and the damage on the Titan is going to be good enough. It doesn't matter how many players Pandemonium kill. Elysium able to find game 1.
The question is, can Pandemonium push us to game number 3, or will they make like a bear and break? Let's find out here in game number 2.
You even said about there being all beads, but no sender available for Pandemonium either. Joshi, holy struggle. Connor once again in some trouble getting re-aggressed onto here. I'm not even sure. Actually, scratch that. Trix is here with the coerce. There's the Sunder. Goodbye. Doesn't matter. They push their luck. They're going to wait and pick up the 3rd bird before they push onto the Titan. Emilzy nearly just dies out of nowhere, puts up the walls, and Joshi is able to find some sort of return, but it might be too little, too late. The Titan is already exposed, half health already. The damage is coming through from Pandemonium. They're trying to save it, but it's not enough. Elysium pick up the 2-0 and secure their place in the next round.
Pandemonium taking on Snake Hunters. Winner of that has to go up against Elysium again.
Good luck.
Neither of them have had that success so far. North America is coming up next. The number 2 seed versus the number 1 here in the losers bracket. Let's see how it shakes out.
Frenzy's gonna get popped, wins the Shamash as well. Stun comes out and Sino has to pop the beads as well. Bluegan is gonna get caught in the fields of lava. Stewart's gonna be on a rampage picking him up.
So these frontline members, it's a do or die instance here for the Tiburones, as Yannick will use the sustain out of that Cupid Hearts to keep himself a little bit tankier. Left side Phoenix finally gonna fall. He's gonna have to use purification beads just to get out of dodge. And
He will actually stun out Ionic, but with the Shamash, were dropped as well onto the back line. Relentless One now trying to see if he can get onto Cope Baby. Frenzy was popped for the Tiburones, and that's going to be 1 for Heed. Bat Out of Hell will be expended again, and Heed's going to have enough damage to hopefully get off the execute again. Bluegun in the back taking almost all of his health. He's going to be able to get away scot-free, and now the rest of the Tiburones are going to push in, but Relentless One will pick up Cope Baby, and now it looks like the turn could happen.
But the damage has already been done. Tiburones' base is under siege. Bluegun, the only one that was actually able to back him fast here without that draconic form. And sure enough, fire minions will be the difference maker.
Well, it's do or die for the Tiburones de Tijuana. Now they have to find a win. Let's see if they can do it in game 2.
He's going to try to hit the scythe. The beats come out. Sunder does come out as well. He's going to go up into the hovering death, and he will try to come crashing down, but Pagon is still not able to get stunned out. But there it comes. Spreen's able to pick up one. Stewart's able to pick up Cope Baby, and now Spreen's trying his hardest to get something, but Stewart will fall. Spreen will pick up a double kill, but the man himself, Sino, will pick up Spreen in response.
Just getting absolutely dismantled. Sino going to keep it going. Spreen doesn't even get an opportunity to try and silla her way out of there. Pagon with a double kill.
It's just clinical for the Sturdy Artisans as another Spirit Ball lands on the Bluegun and takes almost half of his health. The Bat Out of Hell will finish it off. Jay throwing out his ultimate. Looks like he's going to come out crashing in, and Spreen will be able to pick up Sino. There was target number 1. Enemy number 1 down. Ionic's going to pick up Cope Baby. I'm the Monster will connect, and that will be 2 for Spreen, picking up Pagon in response. Stewart now is going to come trying to see if he can get anything in, but I think Spreen will inevitably fall to Stewart as he gets his own double kill. So now Bluegun is going to try to see if he can get away. Guy J's going to be the target, but the Giddy Up will be able to get him out. Ionic taking the Phoenix. Looks like Stewart trying to see if he can get his triple. A deicide for the Sturdy Artisans, as now the Titan is the next target. Spreen is all alone except for Cope Baby. Blink's going to come in. It's going to hit onto Ionic. It's a little too late, I think. The freeze comes out. The crush will as well. And that will do it. The Sturdy Artisans will pick this up 2-0, 28-8.
But the Sturdy Artisans move forward. They remain down there in the lower bracket, Mifflin. Can the Winter Dogs live up to their names? Will the Herculean Hooves take on an impossible task? We'll find out right now in game 1.
But they've got the sustain, whereas the other side do not.
Dash taunt by Gino, and that's execute this target as Snoopy picks up 1. But Mask goes in the back line to find Benny Q. Gonna get the beads, and Diego's away from the mid laner. Still looking for that last auto. He can't find it. Wow, he's able to take him down. Benny Q sustaining just a little while longer under, but eventually he will fall. Baskin takes down Wowie, and Aqua falls in response as well. Snoopy still full health in the engagement. The Giddy Up in the final basic will secure an extra kill. But just over 30 minutes, and the Hooves turn this one around for the first game of the set.
We'll have to see if the Herculean Hooves can find it in 2, or if the Winter Dogs bounce back.
Take a nice dash in from Gamma. Gamma still waiting for the taunt sonic boom onto the back end of it. Hold Snoopy's life for just a moment, though. Ultimate Gamma may be enough to save Wowie's life, but only for a short while. Gamma lands right back down, and the suns rain down. Andy, however, able to pick up with the skewer to take down 1. Benny Q's rotated over and puts himself on the board, giving Mask the time of day. Instead, he's going to the left-hand side where the rest of the fight is broken down. Ultimate from Gina's going to zone them out. Sonic Boom will find Gamma on the backside of it, make that a double kill for Mask as he finds Wowie all alone. Aqua getting low. He's going to get one nice little punt, but Mask is still looking for one more. Snoopy, he takes him down, but a triple kill for Mask.
Excited to see this team and what they're going to do in the finals. Of course, the Winter Dogs not done quite yet. They get a chance to go up against Sturdy Artisans tomorrow, but they've got their work cut out for them because Sturdy Artisans are looking really good right now.
It is Championship Sunday here in the SCC playoffs, and what a day we have ahead for us. We've got a couple losers bracket matches and a couple grand finals. We'll crown ourselves some winners here over in EU and in North America as well. My name is Dolson. I'll be your host all day today, but I cannot do it alone. Taco joins me to talk all things SCC. And Taco, we had a great back and forth day yesterday. EU was pretty competitive, and it was kind of quick on the other side. I guess maybe a quick day all in all. But now we're down to just 3 teams in each of these regions. Competition at an all-time high.
For sure, and it's going to be really interesting seeing who manages to pull their way out of this losers bracket to actually meet up with those already established final selected teams. And Dulcin, I could tell you one thing that's for sure, and that's Snake Hunters versus Pandemonium is sure to see some sparks fly.
And that'll be our first matchup that we have here today. Losers round 2, Pandemonium versus Snake Hunters. Actually a pretty big matchup. You're jumping, I think, about 10 grand in prize money if you're able to win this one, no matter what happens in the grand finals, where Elysium will have that 1-game advantage. So remember, losers round 2, that's where we're going to start. That's still a best of 3, and then the grand finals in both regions will be a best of 5, but a 1-game advantage for the team that made it all the way through in that winner's bracket, and that is Elysium. So Elysium awaits the winner of our first matchup here today, and that is Pandemonium up against Snake Hunters. I think Snake Hunters, Taco, have surprised some people here this weekend. They've taken games and sets off some teams that I think others would have a little bit further on in the tournament, maybe notably Accounting Department. The 2-0 that you see there in the losers round 1 for the Snake Hunters, I think was definitely impressive. But this is a team that's absolutely come to play.
And for sure, even from Pandemonium's loss against Elysium yesterday, I still believe that that is also a team that is more than capable of competing at that top-end level here for the SCC, Dulcin. And it should be a relatively interesting match because I do believe that both of these teams contain right around the same amount of competitive experience. You have to remember, not all of these players are new to the competitive scene by any means, and it's just cool to see some of the success that the Snake Hunters have had, given that a lot of those guys actually came from console.
That's right, and these 2 teams have not matched up yet this weekend, so it's been a lot of 2-0s over here in EU. There was 1-2-1, and that was Elysium and Snake Hunters to start off this weekend. So now we get our first look this weekend at Pandemonium versus Snake Hunters. Let's start our discussion, though, with this Snake Hunters team, because I think between Kha'Zix, Rapio, Pretty Prime, and Silenced, they all had a good day yesterday and kind of pushed this Snake Hunters team forward. Vaporish Coast kind of was the standout, I think, for me yesterday, especially in the matchup we casted.
I love the fact that it's still Vaporish Coast 4 years later on being discussed as a prevalent ADC player. This guy made waves when we first saw him in the console scene, so not really any shocker to me, Dulcin, to see him having the level of success that he is with his ADC gameplay, and especially having such a seasoned jungler to kind of work alongside of. The way that Vaporish and Rapio are able to bounce off of each other just looks so fluid and completely in sync, and when you have that level of teamwork and synergy, that could definitely pose some issues against the likes of Pandemonium, because that's also a team that understands how to work really well together, but this dual lane could be a menace.
We'll talk about this a little bit more pre-picks and bans. I wonder if Ratatosker becomes a point that Pandemonium have to look at because Rapio, his ability to make plays on that pick. I also wonder if Heimdall then becomes a point of focus for this Pandemonium team throughout picks and bans as well, because that's something Vaporish Coast was able to stand up on pretty heavily there yesterday. I think Pretty Prime out of the mid lane had a great matchup yesterday up against the Accounting Department as well. Really high kill games. I mean, that was like pushing 50 kills on that replay in 35 or so minutes. And so high pace for what we're used to seeing over here in EU. And when the kills are going to be getting that high, your mid laner has to step up, and Pretty Prime was able to do so. Let's jump our conversation over to the opponents, though. Pandemonium, this is a team absolutely deserves to be here. They went toe-to-toe with Elysium yesterday. They fell 0-2 to drop down here into the losers bracket. Kana, Sarpei, Joshi, Streak Up, Emilzy, Taco. Who you looking at here on this roster?
Sarpei honestly had a very strong showing yesterday for Pandemonium, despite the fact that they did fall short, like we've already stated, against the likes of Elysium. I mean, you're dealing with the king at that point. And for Sarpei to be able to maintain such a strong pace with adapting goes to show that this team is definitely capable of making it work through the jungle mid prowess. And I'm a really big fan as well of the fact that Joshi, with this mid lane role, if he's able to really find his sync with Sarpei, then I think that could pose a lot of issues for Pretty Prime, because Pretty Prime, for the most part, got to free cast a decent bit yesterday. He did a great job doing his part, don't get me wrong, but I do feel as though this one might be a little bit more mid-focus, and so that's where we'll really get to see the jungle presence shine. Yeah,
agreed. Sarpei is going to have to step up today in this matchup. You look over towards the duo lane as well as these highlights roll. Emilzy moved on over into this team here somewhat recently. Streak Up in this roster as well over in the duo lane. How do you think Emilzy plus Streak Up match up into a Vaporish Coast and Silence duo lane.
I just hope that we get to see some aggression because
Right.
I think that these are two duo lanes that love to fight. It was made evident in both of their respective sets yesterday that they are willing to be aggressive from that duo lane aspect. And if either side is able to actually transition that into any sort of a lead, whether it be by purple buff invades or red buff invades, it could definitely make the rest of the set fairly interesting. I wouldn't even be surprised to say that this could be an all-3 kind of game.
Yeah, I would not be surprised to see that either. In a region where only one of the sets has gone all 3 so far, this is another one where you would not be surprised to see go the distance. Pandemonium versus Snake Hunters. Picks and bans for game number 1. We'll kick off right here and right now. And now I will pose the question to you, Taco. We talked a little bit about this with the Snake Hunters team. Vaporish Coast, Heimdall, Rapio, Ratatosker. Do you have to target those if you're Pandemonium?
Not necessarily the Heimdall, but the Ratatosker, on the other hand, that was clearly instrumental for Snake Hunters. Rapio was able to just facilitate so much of that map control based off of that semi-global through the cosmos. It's just too much presence onto the back line. Snake Hunters made it very evident in their playstyle that they love playing dive. Kha'Zix as well, I think, is someone to keep an eye out for. And maybe not necessarily a Jormungandr band by any means, but Pandemonium, Dulcin, they might have been listening to you on the cast here because they're not going to take any chances. They're just trying to take shots full swing into Vaporish and Rapio here.
I get it right every once in a while. It's not often, but every once in a while my mindset tends to be correct. So Heimdall, Ratatosker off the board. Over on the other side, Osiris, Tiamat, Ymir, pretty solid blanket bans there from the Snake Hunters. That's going to leave open this Fafnir. Given what's available, Taco, is Fafnir at the top of your tier list?
Fafnir is certainly a strong support to opt for, Dulcin. You have to remember a lot of his prevalence that we saw even in the Smite Pro League. So given the level of play that a lot of these guys are, especially between these two teams, can't say I'm surprised to see it kind of maintaining that theme that we saw from SPL, because that's also just a part of the skill level I think these guys are partially at. And Solka Colin, really strong aggressive responses. I think that's a necessity up against the Fafnir. Raijin was still open, but Joshi actually going to opt for that Giannis. Doesn't want to risk the chance that could still go for pre-prime just in case the soul is intended for the dual lane.
I think you were pretty spot on there when talking about Pretty Prime, and that so much space to operate yesterday, especially on the Giannis that we saw for Pretty Prime. I mean, sitting in the back, just weaving in those unstable vortexes, you're going to tend to have pretty good games. So I think props to Pretty Prime as well as the front line, but also I think good for Pandemonium to get that Giannis pick on their side, take it away from Pretty Prime to avoid maybe a run back. Then as Jingwei is the answer here, and Medusa will be the other answer over for the Snake Hunter. So Medusa on one side, Jingwei on the other side. You hope to see some aggression in the duo lane. Does the Hunter matchup at least give you any confidence in seeing aggression?
To a certain extent, because whenever you see a Jingwei, you just have to automatically assume that this is primarily intended for the team fighting aspect. While Jingwei can get an advantage in the laning phase up against the likes of a Medusa, Medusa very clearly has a pretty steep advantage in that early to mid game. So Vaporish, he loves playing as aggressive as possible. I think that this is a pick that very much suits his play style and could pose some issues for Streak Up on that Jingwei. If he isn't careful, he's still going to have to mind his positioning, because even with that airstrike available, it's still possible for a Medusa to have the range off of that Petrify from her landing. Yeah,
absolutely. That's something Pandemonium in the duo lane are going to have to keep their eyes open for. So Fafnir, Jingwei, that'll be the duo lane here for Pandemonium. Giannis, of course, out of the mid lane. Camazot's in the jungle, so this is an interesting swing. Over the last couple games here in EU, we've seen Camazot's trickle his way back into the draft a little bit, so Pandemonium will look to forge that into victory here. I'm going to cut off that thought, though, because while we're living in a world here where Fafnir and Yamoja are your last two picks, I can't believe Yamoja's fallen to 10th pick here, Taco.
And just a lot of other priority bans elsewhere, Dulcin, and it makes sense seeing the Terra and the Sobek, given what we saw out of the Snake Hunters yesterday. I think that those are very strong supports to take away, especially from the likes of a Medusa, but Yamoja still accomplishes the same purpose that the Snake Hunters are looking for, and that's that isolation tactic. They play very much into just trying to separate and break up those team fights, force teams into awkward positioning, and Yamoja is great for that with her Riptide.
You think she plays well with Fafnir in that regard as well?
She can try and at least choke point him for the
Or
rest of
Fenrir,
the team to
excuse
have
me.
better follow-up. Yeah, with the Fenrir, I think it can definitely work
Right.
very hand-in-hand in terms of you'll at least have a pretty solidified beads burner there,
Yep.
so lots of great crowd control, I think, for the follow-up off of Medusa and Soul.
Well, Snake Hunters, they look to isolate their targets. They look to get game number 1 underway. Pandemonium versus Snake Hunter starts right now.
Well, seems like Blazy might be having a little bit of mic issues, so I'm going to do an introduction here for us. Pandemonium up against Snake Hunters, brought to you by Mifflin and Blazy Bard, young Robbie Trickett. I don't know what Chair 1s normally do here, Blazy. Am I supposed to ask you a question? All right, still having a little bit of an issue here, so we're going to run through it. It's just me today, guys. Pandemonium coming at you with a pretty early game-centric composition. Sarpe. Oh, hey! Do we have Blazy here? Nope, not at all. Still just me. Kamazot's going for the Eye of the Jungle into the boot start. Pretty standard across the board going forward. I'm expecting this game to go for a more mid-game pace. Maybe around the 10-15 minute mark we start to see these squads start to group up around the Gold Fury. But as far as early game presence goes, keep your eye on Sarpe. He should be the one setting the pace. It's up to Rapio to make sure he's out there just matching what he's able to put out. You got to make sure that you've got the beads immunity burnt off by the rest of your composition. There's plenty of pressure to be had here as Emilzy and Streak Up starting to move their way forward throughout the lane. This early pressure should allot them at least an easier way in towards the purple buff. Vaporish Coast dashing forward. Streak Up forced to use the beads here, falling low. The slow comes through, but silence. No Omi available to him. Not going to be able to pick up that kill.
Mifflin!
Hey, welcome back.
Mifflin, can you hear me?
Yeah,
Did I make
yeah.
it?
I hope this isn't Discord. Are you talking to the stream?
Yeah, no, I made it. I'm here. Hi. I got lost. I took the wrong exit through to the broadcast train. Yep. I took the wrong stop. And now I am here. So thank you for covering for me. And we got a double stun already in the mid lane. Sarpe in a bit of trouble, but is going to jump away. What did I miss, Mifflin?
Well, you missed not really much. You're about a minute in, no kills, nothing really happening here. There was a swift turnaround inside the duo lane. Vaporish Coast able to force off Streak Up's beads, and now Snake Hunters are the one with a little bit more initiative on the long hand side of the map. Purple buff invades have been the name of the game here in Season 8, so we'll see whether or not one of these teams elects to do so.
Well, already I can see that my boy Vaporish Coast sitting about a level above, well, half a level. Streak Up just about keeping toe with him here over in the left-hand side. Mifflin, has anybody asked you about some of these pickups? Because I think this might be the first time we've seen Kamazots all weekend.
Legitimately, no one asked me about any of it. I was doing this like all on my own earlier
What?
here. I think we saw Kamazots a little bit on the North American side. First pick, actually, from, I believe it was Adapting's team as well, picked it up, but Kamazots is a good pick. I like it in general. It has great dive potential. You can almost act as a solo agent in the back line using that Bat Out of Hell as a get out of jail free card, essentially giving you a sprint and an Aegis at the exact same time. I think it's a pick that is going to be largely consistent here in Season 8.
Well, already we'll have to see how well Sarpe is going to make use of it. Fully charged up on those boots. Has the Eye of the Jungle. Is this... I don't know about this Eye of the Jungle, Mifflin. Isn't normally Boombas typically the thing we see with the Kamazots?
Eye of the Jungle is kind of a nod towards the pace of the game. If you want to go for Boombas, it gives you a little bit more sustain throughout the early. It also helps you out once you upgrade it later on with a little bit of that objective siege. But Protector of the Jungle, man, is just so good. Percentage any stat in the game, and this is me talking directly to the chat here. If you can pick up an item that gives you percentage of a stat, it's generally going to be good.
Vaporish in a little bit of trouble here. Gets hit by the Vampire Bats and tries to slither away, but that tick damage is going to be too strong. Sarpe starting the game off 3.5 minutes in. First blood to the Bat.
Nice discipline from Vaporish Coast to hold on to his beads there, able to at least keep some semblance of safety once he returns back to lane, and he was already benefiting from about a half-level lead, so it shouldn't be too hard for him to catch back up, to streak up, and even with the Medusa Jingwei matchup, you're not feeling too far down if you are just falling a little bit. Medusa has such a good 1v1 potential there that, really, I don't think he's concerned.
Yeah, this is the premier matchup that we saw actually from Vaporish in, I believe it was Snake Hunter's set against Elysium at the start of the week. We saw Vaporish and Ulka and then Vaporish and Spudio trade off on these two characters pretty much that entire set. And Vaporish looks so comfortable, so at home on this Medusa, so no surprise to me seeing him bring it back, going for that kind of new age power build on this Transcendence, although really interesting to see that Streak Up has decided to go for this Death's Toll rather than Gilded or Bluestone.
Yeah, normally the Death's Toll pickup, it's something that's come through in the last couple of weeks. That sustain that it affords you in lane, not just your HP, but also your mana, is just so nice. It also has pretty decent upgrades. Death Temper in particular has been kind of slept on here in Season 8, but the normal Devo's Gloves build just means this dude's going to build crit. He's playing Jingwei. It's kind of the only path you can go on this god. He needs to get some of the Lightsteel a little bit earlier.
Really helps out supercharging those explosive bolts that you get from Jingwei's too. Already finding himself in, I would say it's about even over here on the left-hand side. Maybe Streak Up with a slight advantage after that first kill, but no kill credit going the way of the ADC, just solely on Sarpe and Emilzy, who are currently still just vying over random spots on the map at this point.
They sure are. Keep your eyes on Emilzy, though. Already has the upgraded Sunder, so whoever he's able to target out, single out with that hammer, should be able to fall down pretty easily with some follow-up damage from either Sarpe or Joshi, both playing very high burst damage gods inside the Kamazots and the Yanis. But for now, it is Sarpe making a little bit of loop around towards this red buff. Seems like Pandemonium are at least posturing to look for an invade.
Yeah, he gets spotted out here, and Rapio is a very dangerous doggo. Actually, Sarpe's going to hit him in the face with the bats and the echo, and he's going to take a whole bunch of damage, forced to leap away, and Sneak Hunters are actually going to walk away from this engagement. It doesn't look like they want that fight, even though Rapio stood a level above his opponent. Takes about half of his health from two abilities.
Yeah, that Fenrir, man. Once he falls down low, too, it's so hard to want to commit to these engagements. The Unchained, the Brutalized both leave you very exposed inside of these fights. So Rapio generally going to be waiting until he's got at least 80% of his HP bar before he's feeling confident enough to really go in towards an engagement like that. But for now, both teams returning back to a state of neutral. Streak Up having a little bit of a skirmish over this left-hand side camp is going to go his way, and Greater Scorpion already started up.
It does look like that was secured out here by Pandemonium. No steal option for Silenced here. And the right side Scorp was looked for, Forp if you will. But Pandemonium gonna look it, leave it to the Snake Hunters to do it themselves. I don't really want to commit to the Forp, which is fine, right? Scorpions are kind of this objective that, like, you take it if you can, but you're not too fussed about giving it up. It's more about getting those objectives on the map.
Yeah, agreed, especially that Gold Fury side. You really want that up as soon as possible. It's a great way to build some disparity between these two teams. Whichever one picks up the Gold Fury initially can also desync the timers and start to work their way towards the Pyro, which will be spawning very soon as the Forp, as you said, has just fallen. Keeping your eyes on top of these Soul Laners. Kana under a little bit of pressure here, but Kha'Zix has been benefiting from a slight level lead, and if you take a peek at the builds as well, should have an easier time rotating out as Kha'Zix is elected to go for the Stone of Gaia. He's going to be a little bit more versatile inside of these engagements earlier on, whereas Kana has got the Soul Leader, going to need to get that stacked up before he's able to really get the full fruition from it.
It's a dangerous game as well. Already about a half a level down is Connor from probably one of the most dangerous, if I get ahead, I'm going to run the entire game Soul Laner, excluding King Arthur, right? Like, he doesn't count. It's not fair to include him in this conversation, but Cullen definitely up for discussion on that most dangerous Soul Laner list. And I think if Kha'Zix can keep this lead up over Connor and start translating that into the mid lane potentially, maybe even over towards the left-hand side to try and pick up this Gold Fury. That could be a very disastrous rotation for Pandemonium.
It could be, Blazy, but you got to remember we're over here in Europe right now. I mean, 1 kill, 9 minutes in, and I would imagine the pace picks up until we see second relics start to get looked at by both of these teams. Pretty prime. A little bit far forward, but benefiting from playing the Soul Hazardous Apparate to get himself out of these sticky situations. For now, I don't think either team really is overly favored going into the late game, so neither team really has to worry about the early game either. They can just kind of rest on their laurels and farm up.
Silence could be in a little bit of trouble, but that Riptide should find him just safe. Rapio on the right-hand side, though, gonna jump on top of Sarpei. The damage from Brutalize is gonna take him out. Sarpei not opting to try and get away from that at all. The ultimate was available for him. Now Emilzy under some duress. Already ultimates used by both of them. Rapio is gonna be right here pulling the Dragon back over into the walls, but potentially a little bit of a misplay there from Silence, a little bit of a miscommunication. Gonna block off Rapio from really taking Emilzy too far away from the rest of his team. So Emilzy is just gonna be able to jump right out.
Man, if we want to talk about misplays, we got to talk about Sarpei there, man. Camazotz has 2 ways to break the Brutalize. Could either use his leap or could use his ultimate. Did not use either one and takes out that full damage from Rapio, who now has a great opportunity to start looking towards his gold.
And that's exactly what they're gonna do. Emilzy and Streak Up, no ultimates available to them. Jumping in as Emilzy. Snake Hunters are able to secure it, but the damage isn't really anything that anyone's too worried about. They Porish takes a little hunk of damage there, but everyone's gonna be just fine. Snake Hunters walk away with a pretty clean Gold Fury.
Clean Gold Fury that leads them to a 1,500 gold lead as well, and with the neutral objectives now having desynced timers, they could start to look over towards the Pyromancer. Pandemonium, privy to this strategy, going to try and remove that as an option, and with no one here from the Snake Hunters except for Kha'Zix, could be a steal away. Pandemonium do confirm it, but just barely.
Jesus, so my heart stopped for a second there. I saw the exact moment the breakdowns went down from Kha'Zix, but wasn't meant to be. Still sad level up on Connor though, so I don't think he's too concerned. The Pyromancer at this point of the game, more of a extra little bonus rather than anything you have to really worry about too much. Is going to allow Pandemonium a little bit more freedom to rotate around the map from base, but it's 11.5 minutes in, Mifflin. As you said, neither of these teams are probably planning on getting too aggressive anytime soon.
No, not much to fight over right now, but there are some slight disparities on the map that could lead to some small engagements. Vaporish Coast, first to level 12 inside the Hunter role, is going to have that second relic available to him on the next back, as well as very close to his huge power spike inside of Aussie. Transcendence already stacked up, and if we are going to use history as an indicator, Vaporish Coast is the type of dude who likes to rotate into these team fights aggressive in the 3v3 or play under his enemy ADC's tower, and already working his way towards the purple.
Well, speaking of 3v3, it's exactly what we're probably going to be seeing on the left-hand side here. Purple buff gets secured by Pandemonium, and Emilzy is going to get pulled back in by the Riptide, but not really the target you want to go for. A lot of really easy ways to escape out of any unfortunate situation that iSilence might be able to put them in. Emilzy and Streak Up definitely going to be pretty immune to that. Joshi in a spot of bother, but actually finds his way through a portal into so much damage. Nearly get a repeat of what we saw yesterday, Mifflin, of Joshi getting murdered under tower by a Soul Prime. Not quite able to find the damage this time around, though. Maybe once that Talon or Bancroft gets finished up here, though, maybe we see a different story.
Yeah, I think that's likely going to be the Typhon's Fang. Going to go for a little bit more penetration inside the build. Synergizes so well with a new Spear of Magus here in Season 8. Yeah, that item has lifesteal on it now, by the way. Spear of the Magus is incredibly strong, and he goes for the lifesteal boots as well. This guy's going to be able to stick around inside the team fights for as long as he wants, and with that enhanced auto attacks from Soul's passive, can even tank up these neutral objectives.
You even have that huge burst heal in the form of your one that really, like, you don't even need the lifesteal necessarily to heal yourself up, right? Soul just has so many options to keep herself healthy during a fight. And even if one of these members of Pandemonium jumps on top of her like Sarpei, she can just drop that little flame well, heal herself up a little bit, and maybe even look to trade it out while she tries to survive. But Prime's kind of starting to hit this critical mass point of Soul, right? Once that Typhon's gets finished up, he's going to start doing a lot of damage to objectives and players alike.
He really will, and he's got a great team composition around him to facilitate that. The Ragnarok from Fenrir can just hold someone down. A couple auto attacks from Soul should be enough to finish that one out, but Snake Hunter is taking some aggressive positioning on the right-hand side. Pandemonium's here in numbers.
Through space and time, he's going to hit Rapio in the back of the head, and he's going to fall down before the engagement even begins. Both ultimates from the supports have been expended, and Kozik's now going up into the rage form, trying to walk away. And it doesn't look like anyone else really wants to commit anything into this. Kozik's potentially looking at Connor, but he's a big tanky monkey. He'll be just fine, but you gotta feel bad for Rapio. Gets deleted without a second thought.
Yeah, I don't have much sympathy for Fenrir players, right? I don't have to feel bad for him, but I can certainly acknowledge the fact that he did get blown up. It was a little bit of an overzealous extension from the Snake Hunters to try and look towards that blue buff, but it makes sense why they're going for it. Kha'Zix is a little bit further ahead than his opposition inside. Kana has picked up a mystical mail as well as Vaporish Coast getting caught out around the Oracles, 3 versus 1.
He's too far up, looks around, gets the Petrify into Streak Up, and it's gonna force the beads, but not going to stop the damage from Airstrike, being able to finish up Vaporish nearly, so nearly, finds his way out of that situation, but it was not meant to be. Medusa just not having the mobility quite yet.
No, not the mobility to deal with 4 people surrounding you on the left-hand side. He is able to at least strip away some of those defensive tools from Streak Up. Both the airstrike and the beads are expended. Rapio needs to take notice. He can rotate over, find the Ragnarok relatively easily, and, well, that'll put Vaporish Coast right back in it.
Has been pretty quiet from both of these junglers, to be fair. Typically, with these Fenrir comps, you expect that Fenrir to really start putting the pressure on around level 7 once that ultimate is online and he's got that first item, but both junglers have been pretty quiet so far. This time, Pandemonium looking to set up around the Primal Fury yet again. Both the soul lanes have made their rotation, and thus the dance begins.
It does. Emilzy and Kana have the defensive positioning established already, as well as the vision advantage, not only from wards, but also from the Oracles. It's going to be very hard for the Snake Hunters to work their way in, but Pandemonium are not generating enough threat to force the Snake Hunters to even want to walk in. It is just a slight dance for now until one team has the confidence to work their way forward. Rapio, though, already split pushing his pretty prime, gets dove on into the back. Vaporish Coast falling low.
Up into the sky goes Sarpe, looking for Vaporish, and on landing, he's going to pick it up. The water wall's not going to be able to save the life of the Hunter. Meanwhile, Streak Up getting focused down by the jungler, but he's, unlike his counterpart, is going to make his way out. Sarpe in a bit of trouble, but Pretty Prime is going to get baited into the situation, and Sarpe will be just fine. Prime cannot say the same, though. He's going to pay the price for fighting the jungler. Emilzy and Connor still trying to posture around here, but with 2 kills favoring the way of Pandemonium, that should be all she wrote for this fight with both the carries in the ground.
Man, Pandemonium play that so well. The second they saw Rapio split pushing the center of the map, they say, okay, we're going to go in. It's time to dive. Let's go as far forward as we can, and it kites them directly the opposite direction of Rapio. He was not able to rejoin that engagement. Snake Hunters had essentially hedged all their bets on saying, Pandemonium's not going to look for the fight here. Instead, they're going to try and force the objective. Well, that was simply not the case, and now, 17 minutes of the game, it is 5-1 in favor of the Order team, but gold disparity would not tell you that. It is just 1,000 in the lead for Pandemonium.
Definitely been farming better, have the Snake Hunters. You can kind of see it, right? It's this slow, steady lead that Snake Hunters were kind of establishing with that Gold Fury, which is that big first spike that you can see there. And then kind of the farm starts to taper off towards Pandemonium in that last engagement or 2. And what do they need to do now, Mifflin? Pandemonium kind of have this driver's seat opportunity. How do they push that gas?
They can continue to pressure out the Gold Fury. It worked pretty well for him beforehand, and with his 4,000 experience lead, could make it even easier this time around. Snake Hunters are able to strip away the Oracles, so they should have decent vision around the Gold Fury itself, but that's not enough to stop Pandemonium. They can just generate threat and force the Snake Hunters to make a decision. Do we let the Gold Fury go, or do we take the fight?
Well, everyone from the Snake Hunters is back up and ready. The biggest disadvantage they have at the moment is that both of Prime's relics are down for the next 20 or so seconds on the beads and 60 on the Aegis. Pandemonium take note. Emilzy and Connor making a lot of space here in the front, but Street Cup's right here, gonna get knocked up by
Rip.
Kha'Zix. Connor has already killed Pretty Prime. Where did he go? Goodbye, Silence. And Vaporish also in a bit of
Great
bother,
ult.
but Connor's gonna get stunned out there by the Petrify. Silence could be in some trouble here, and so is Vaporish. Both the dual laners are going to die nearly instantaneously. We died together, or not at all. Kha'Zix is gonna find one, and a 3-man stun there from Rapio isn't gonna make a difference. Down he falls. Kha'Zix transforms up into the Rage ult, but the damage is not gonna be enough there for him. 4 people scratch that. 5 deicide for Pandemonium, and they're gonna go straight to the Fire Giant.
Yeah, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me 2 times, can't put the blame on you. Pandemonium just do the exact same strategy twice in a row. Group up around the Gold Fury. They don't even legitimately start it, but Snake Hunters were just too worried about whether or not they would given up too much positioning and walk in and immediately get routed inside the engagement. Now, 5 dead on the side of Snake Hunters, only 2 just now spawning. Fire Giant's gonna go the way of Pandemonium.
19.5 minutes, Mifflin. This game, it looks to be a splitter from Pandemonium. But even so, the Snake Hunters aren't really all that far behind. Pain.
Yeah, all right.
No.
Okay.
No,
that's great.
that... Oh, Pain. Well... I don't really know how to go from there, Mifflin. Sub-Pay would have been one of those very important to keep the Fire Giant buff on target. It's going to really be boosting up the amount of damage he can do to these carries, to these towers, which, I mean, Camazots can really hit hard with those basic attacks, right? But it was a silly death from Sub-Pay there.
Yeah, unnecessary, I think is the best way to describe it, but it's not backbreaking. Pandemonium are just fine. I mean, Sarpei is not the most important member to have Fire Giant. Generally, you want it on your supports and your ADCs so they can siege towers much more easily. Sarpei not going to be struggling in the burst department as he, from his death in the grayscale screen, was able to finish off that Heartseeker, and we've already seen what his damage output looks like on the likes of Pretty Prime or even Vaporish Coast. Sure, he would have much preferred to have the Fire Giant, but not the biggest deal. Pandemonium have plenty of towers left on the map to strip away and pick up the gold. 5 of them still standing for the Snake Hunters. Should be the Snake Hunters group up around the tier 2s, likely put up a soft defense, not willing to commit their lives. It's really the Phoenixes that we need to be worried about.
And already 1 tier 1 falls on the left-hand side. Pandemonium are in a very good position here to siege up. Snake Hunters, though, looking like they want to put up a little bit of a defense around this tier 2. Don't really want to let it go for free, and I think that's more than fair enough. Pandemonium easily enough repelled, but Snake Hunters are going to have to commit a lot to this defense. Is this a good idea, or should we just be looking for these Phoenixes?
Look, soft defense. Don't die for a tier 2 when you're already 4,000 gold behind. When Fire Giant's on 4 members, you cannot afford to lose a life here if you're on the side of the Snake Hunters, but it seems like it is going to be a hard defense. Kha'Zix blink it in.
2 people get knocked up there. Emilzi's all the way in the back line, but Streak Up is too fast to Kha'Zix to catch. Scratch that, able to get that root down. Streak Up forced into the airstrike. Emilzi could be in some trouble. He's going to transform into that draconic form and
nice
ult into the water waves. Goodbye, Emilzi. No escape for you this time, but Vaporish could be in some trouble here. O'Connor's going to leap onto him, but the Petrify is going to be good to do some damage and keep O'Connor away for now, but it's not going to matter. Down falls the ADC. Connor does trade his life for it, though. Streak Up, meanwhile, in the back line, forced to use that Aegis to stop Kha'Zix from running him down up into the north. Joshi is going to take a spill as well. Now Sarpei and Streak Up, the only members left standing. Snake Hunters take a bad position and flip it on its head. Streak Up, the only Fire member left standing.
Man, Snake Hunters posed the question to Pandemonium. Hey, can you guys push this properly? And Pandemonium didn't even write on the test. They poked through the paper with their pencil and played about as poorly as they could have. Immediately, we see Emilzi gets caught out by a phenomenal Rivers Rebuke. Just a fantastic usage from Silence to cover the option of the jump. But from there, what does Pandemonium do? Desynced call. Some people are running away into the jungle. Some people are re-engaging. Kana goes in 1 by 1. When you go in 1 by 1, well, you don't really win 1 versus 5s. Pandemonium give themselves a bad engagement artificially manufactured by themselves.
It's gonna... Well, it's unfortunate for Pandemonium, but they're not out of this by any stretch of the word. They're gonna be feeling potentially a little bit down, a little bit upset that they let that Fire Giant power play go to waste, but Fire Giant spawns in about a minute and a half anyway, and they're going to pick up that Pyromancer to give themselves a little bit extra pressure around it. Snake Hunters, Mifflin, though. They had a fantastic defense there. Can they translate that to the next FG fight?
I think they can. They're coming into this fight a lot better off than they were last time around. Fire Giant should be easier to put up a defense on because of the intangibles. Not so easy to bait a Fire Giant fight as it is a Gold Fury, because you can play super far back and just look through the Fog of War and see if those effects are coming through. If the Fire Giant isn't pulled, there's no reason for the Snake Hunters to step up. They don't need to take the fight in neutral terrain. Instead, wait for Pandemonium to at least give them a slight opening.
And now with some of these starter items starting to get finished up. Hold on a second, Mifflin. Look at Sarpe's starter item. Am I going crazy, or is that a Seer of the Jungle?
It is a Seer of the Jungle. Just a little bit more damage towards these objectives, especially Gold Furies, Fire Giants. It is a interesting selection, to say the least. Protector of the Jungle is just incredibly strong as a stat stick. We don't often see this item picked up. Maybe he's worried about their ability to confirm these objectives, considering they don't have an Orthodox Mage. Joshi does not have the best confirmation on the map.
Potentially. It's, I mean, if that's the thought case behind it, then I can kind of respect it. It's an interesting pickup, but Camazot says, well, doesn't really have all that much in the way of confirm, but we'll have to see how it works out for him. Connor, at the moment, trying to keep this zone alive while the rest of Pandemonium start up this FG. Looking to just test the waters at the moment is Streak Up, but Connor's going to blink forward and take a healthy amount of damage, and so is Streak Up. Oh my goodness! The crit reflecting back onto him is going to put Streak Up at about half HP below. Sarpe in some trouble as well. Takes off into the sky to get away. Connor all the way up in the top-hand side. Could be in some danger, but he's got to run away from the supernova there. The rest of Pandemonium still in full retreat mode. Emilzy going up into the dragon form, going to get picked up as soon as he does so. It's not going to matter that you used your ult, Mr. Support Man. You're going to fall down anyway. 1-for-none trade. Snake Hunters now in a good spot to take the FG.
Another incredibly desynced team fight for Pandemonium as Kana walks in alone and dies alone. Second one for Vaporish Coast and Fire Giant burning quickly. Pandemonium came into this with so much momentum just 6 minutes ago. Had they been grouped up as 5, I would have given them 7-3 odds to just close this one out. But because they've been just kind of losing sight of how they want to approach these engagements, they've been losing out pretty handily. In particular, Emilzy's been caught out repeatedly now, turning into the dragon form. Kana has been taking some interesting engagements after Emilzy's death. It's literally the exact same formula we saw on the left-hand side just a couple moments ago.
It's definitely leading to their defeat here. Potentially leading to their defeat. Not definitely. There's still a lot of game left to be played, but Emilzy once again getting caught between the jaws of the doggo. Jumps straight back into the River's Rebuke, but this time is going to have that little nook to escape through. Joshi going to walk out with him, but the first bird is going to fall down. Streak Up in a little bit of trouble. Scratch that. Rapio jumping back away. Snake Hunters take bird 1 and slink back off into the jungle.
Worth noting that Streak Up does not elect to go for the standard Jingwei build and instead has a Tank Shredder build coming his way with a Death's Embrace as well for some additional sustain. Can stick inside these fights maybe a little longer than the Snake Hunters are predicting, but Snake Hunters not going to leave it up to chance. Take away the Mid-Phoenix, back up, pick up the Primal Fury as well, and should be able to reset the base and spend off all that gold in pocket.
There's only one anti-heal item on the other side of the game here, Mifflin. Only the Pestilence coming out from Kha'Zix. Do you think that's going to be an issue for Snake Hunters going up against Streak Up's build here?
It could make it a little bit harder, but Streak Up, being as squishy as he is up against the composition that Snake Hunters has, if anyone stuns him or if Rapio is able to close gap, he should have the burst potential to make sure that Streak Up isn't able to really get the full utility out of Death's Embrace. It's partially the reason we don't see this item picked up overly often. But anti-heal, a little bit more important, I think, for Pandemonium to pick up, which is why you see Pestilence, Brawler's Beatstick already selected, even the Ankh coming through from Emilzy, just trying to contend with what Ice Silence and Pretty Prime are putting out.
That could be pretty devastating as well if you can time that Ankh to when Silence is going to throw out that healing water that can bounce between the entire team, and if you can slap everyone with, what is it, 20% extra damage to everyone who's been healed? Something along those lines?
It is exactly that. You nailed it.
Yeah, well, look at me. It's almost like I've been doing some Chad 2 work, Mifflin.
Whew. Meanwhile, right-hand side, Snake Hunters crossing their T's, dotting their I's, making sure that all that defense onto the Titan is stripped away. No more towers standing between them and the exposed base of Pandemonium. This could be the last siege, and it's Rapio in first.
Already up into that Ragnarok form, but his target has gone away, and well, Connor gave him a free one there, up into the sky already, onto the River's Rebuke he goes. Meanwhile, in the tower, Streak Up trying to fight off Kha'Zix. Connor, 1 HP, but the portal from Joshi is going to save the life of the solo laner, but, well, Joshi can't quite say the same. He's going to take the first spill here. Vaporish takes credit for that kill, but Snake Hunters are looking a little worse for wear. Rapio, Kha'Zix, and Vaporish aren't really in a lot of fighting spirit at the moment, but with all the sustain that your Moja and Fire Giant can give them, it's not going to matter too much. Prime doing so much damage to this Phoenix, and as soon as Vaporish is able to look at it for even a half second, there it goes. Stun onto Emilzy from Rapio. Nice, cool, calm, and collected from the Snake Hunters. They're going to back up after Phoenix 2 as well.
They are. Only 20 seconds left on that Fire Giant power play, so not willing to commit themselves towards the Titan itself. I think they could have had the opportunity to keep that fight going, considering how well they had sustained up through Yamoja, through the Seething Howl as well from Rapio inside the jungle, but instead do not want to leave it up to chance. This is, again, the loser's side of the brackets. Whoever loses here goes home and will not have a chance to try again and close out that $30,000 prize pool for first place. So I can't blame the Snake Hunters for kind of just taking it at a slower pace.
Absolutely. It's that kind of thing where they're definitely not being inactive, right? They're not being too scared and just playing it safe for the sake of playing it safe. They're playing it safe to be smart here. It's not losing through inaction that we see from some of these teams in similar high-pressure situation. Pandemonium definitely in a bad spot, and the Snake Hunters using this time to regroup, finish up their builds. A lot of these, minus obviously selling boots, are completely done now.
What is this? Maybe shades of Mouse Esports going for the wide wrap, seeing if maybe they can get behind them on the Fire Giant. Take a peek at the wards on the map. Snake Hunters have none back here. Pandemonium trying to remake history, but Snake Hunters spot him out!
It's not gonna be successful for the Pandemonium roster. Instead, Kha'Zix now starting this fight. Joshi already in a lot of trouble. Uses the through space and time to get Pandemonium onto the other side of the team fight. Up into the sky goes Streak Up already. That's both the carries. Ultimate abilities used, but Pre-Prime in a bit of trouble. Emilzy trying to chase him out with Subpay and Connor on the rear guard, but Pre-Prime's gonna turn it around. Rapio finds number 2. Emilzy falls down, but Vaporish is gonna fall down to Joshi here as well. Streak Up finds the other carry in the form of Vaporish. Coast, Pretty Prime, and Vaporish already fall down to the fight, but Joshi and Connor, the only man's left standing here from Pandemonium. One Phoenix still down. Joshi back in base here to defend this mid Phoenix that Snake Hunters should just be able to run down. They don't have any of their auto attackers, but it shouldn't really matter with Connor being as low as he is and the Phoenix being at half health. Rapio should just be able to walk up and take down this bird.
Should be able to, especially with the assistance of his team, but 3 versus 2, this is easier said than done for the end. If they can shut down Joshi, they might be able to look for the Titan itself, and we'll see how the Snake Hunters are looking to approach this engagement instead. Again, it is going to be a reset back to neutral. Blazy, that wraparound was as nostalgic as it can get. I thought that maybe we would have seen a flash of greatness there, but it felt like to me, or maybe it seemed like Snake Hunters got spotted out on top of that minion wave as they started to cross their way through mid. Unfortunate straggler shows himself on the map. Pandemonium, or rather, get spotted out. Snake Hunters get them inside of that one. Tough, but they were at least able to take a fight in neutral territory and win out evenly, even though they do lose out on their middle Phoenix.
For sure. I think Pandemonium really made the best out of that situation there. They did get spotted, but they took out the 2 players on Snake Hunters, who, even if one of them was still alive at the end of that engagement, probably would have been able to close out the game for the red side roster at the moment. But by taking down Prime and Vaporish, Pandemonium able to extend this game by just a little bit longer. The 3rd Fire Giant, and stop me if I'm wrong here, Mifflin, but I think it's safe to say the final Fire Giant of the game should be this 33-plus minute EFG.
It should be. Whoever gets this one could very easily close out the match. If Pandemonium went out cleanly, that enhanced Fire Giant stripping away backdoor protections means that really they could just barrel down the center of the map. Emilzy in first, but where's your team?
There are no carries here, and the River's Rebuke already coming through. Jumping forward is Connor, and so is Emilzy. Sarpe and Joshi have been able to rejoin the fight, but Prime already falling super low. There's Connor through the portal. Down goes Pretty Prime to start off the engagement. Streak Up is going to follow him into the grave, though. It's a 1-for-1 trade, but Joshi's going to pick up a Porsche as well. Sarpe now in a bit of trouble. Going to get jumped on by the Doggo. He's going to fall down to Kha'Zix, but Connor going to trade out Rapio. Takes a spill as well, 3v2. Only Kha'Zix and Silence left. And Emilzy working his way through the Angry Man. Joshi could potentially look to try and follow him through, but there are 2 waves of fire minions coming up into this base. One from the mid, one still pushing up that right-hand side. Connor has to back and clear them out, but that is a good start for Pandemonium to come back into this game.
These are some wild team fights, Blazy. It feels like to me Europe is just a slower North America in that you guys do love your mud battles. You just want to have them 34 minutes into the game rather than at the first 10 minutes. Pandemonium almost able to secure that team fight cleanly. Had either Sarpe or Streak Up survived it, they could have very easily looked towards the Fire Giant or even potentially the end. But they did not quite keep those people alive, and instead Snake Hunters found the priority targets and do exactly what Pandemonium was able to do just a couple moments ago. Right-hand side, Phoenix now respawned for Pandemonium, and it's just the mid down for now. We're going to see a reset back to neutral, but this is still a much better state that Pandemonium is in than they were just even 3 minutes ago.
For sure, and I just want to clarify the statement you just made, Mifflin. You're absolutely right. We do love ourselves some mud fights over here, but we like them with stakes. Alright, you guys in NA fighting all 5v5s in the jungle at 10, 15 minutes, nothing's gonna come at that. If you get into a big proper mud fight over here 35 minutes into the game and one team loses, they lose. And that's what we're all about. We want to fight where the stakes are high.
Yeah, here's the thing though. Our stakes are pretty high because in North America they can end games at the 20-minute mark, and we're at the 40-minute mark here. This is 2 North American games over in Europe, but for now I am a big fan of how it's been panning out. The stakes are nice, and this pace has been fun to keep track of. 2,000 gold in the lead are the Snake Hunters, and 36 minutes in, that is not even worth the breath that I expended to say it. It means literally nothing inside of this engagement. Instead, it's more so about the relics. 2 down on the side of Pandemonium. Beads for Sarpe and Aegis for Streak Up, but that's going to be coming up very soon. Snake Hunters, though, unconcerned, looking towards the enhanced Fire Giant.
Vaporish still 20-ish seconds left on his Aegis as well. It's on Pandemonium now to stop the Snake Hunters from getting this objective. It's already falling pretty low, but Snake Hunters aren't really too comfortable to go for the full secure at this stage. They don't really want to commit anything, and I can't blame them. The stakes, as we both mentioned, are so high at the moment. Even just using Prime's ult to secure that Fire Giant could spell disaster if he can't use it to peel for himself in the fight afterwards. Kha'Zix looking to make a little bit of space here. Uses the ultimate and forces the dash out of Jingwei. Emilzy taking that opportunity to jump in. Now Connor blinking into the rest of the fight as well. The River's Rebuke is going to be good. And Rapio taking Connor for a little bit of a spin through space and time, coming through. Going to rip through 1 health bar or 2. I couldn't quite see there. Emilzy still looking to fight Vaporish, but he's going to get stuck into the petrification. Down goes Emilzy, but down goes Vaporish at the same time. That's 2 kills for Rapio, though. So Pei is going to take a spill as well. Streak Up still alive here, but is going to have to face the might of the Doggo. Down he falls. Pretty Prime claims credit for that kill, and now only 2 members left standing. And this time, Pandemonium haven't cleared the priority targets. Pretty Prime is still standing, and if there's one person on Snake Hunters who you can know will take down these Phoenixes in an instant, it's not even Vaporish Coast Mifflin, it's Pretty Prime, and he's coming for that Phoenix.
He sure is. Fire Giant be damned. We do not need it. It's up to Joshi and Kana to put up the miracle defense. Silenced. Caught out by the unstable vortex. Drops down to just below a quarter HP. But that's a Yamoja. Gonna heal up pretty fast.
Rapio jumping forward, looking to find some pressure, but the portal's going to save the life of Joshi for now. Connor gets picked up by the Unchained, but he's not going to take all that much damage. It looks like they've done it, Mifflin. Joshi and Connor are going to hold the Phoenix, and Snake Hunters run away with their tails between their legs.
Joshi not happy with just the defense, instead wants to find a kill as well. May have bit off more than he could chew as Rapio jumps in, eats the ultimate from Joshi. Now Kana on the chase, just the slow from Master's Will is going to extend this engagement just a little bit further, but Pandemonium thinking better of it with Snake Hunters on the respawn. No reason to keep chasing this one out, and again, another reset to neutral. 38 minutes into this game, it's going to come down to yet another Fire Giant fight.
What a way to start our day, Mifflin. Game 1, set 1. We've already got a 40-minute barn burner. It's not even one of those super slow, boring EU games that we sometimes see that just go to 40 minutes because it's like 20 minutes of posturing around a fire giant, right? This is hard fought. Both of these teams are playing so well now that we've reached this late game situation. Pandemonium had a couple troubles to start off with, but it looks like they're really starting to show why they've made it this far in the tournament right here, right now.
They are. Now, which team is going to establish the defensive positioning first? Snake Hunters have a Sentry Ward on the Fire Giant itself that just dies to timer. Unfortunate for them. They do not have the information that Emilzy is so far forward. In the last couple of engagements, it's been Rapio starting off the fight for Snake Hunters, generally either ulting Emilzy or ulting Kana. Not the best targets.
Emilzy already jumping in yet again. Pandemonium a little bit too far out, but that hasn't stopped them before. Unk is going to get popped, and already Connor here at half HP. Unchained is already popped, and up into the sky goes Streak Up, looking to find, his
huge
way out,
ult!
but
Joshi!
Joshi finds 2! That's huge! Kha'Zix is going to find
3!
It's not going to matter. Triple kill for Joshi! Can he find a 4th? Silence looking to make his way out, but a 2-man stun is going to save him for now. Sharpay still close on his backline. Quadra kill for the Giannis! And now Snake Hunters look like they could lose game number 1. Pandemonium 45 seconds on the nearest respawn timer, but Rapio still looking to defend. We saw a miracle defense from Pandemonium just a few minutes ago, but can Kha'Zix do it all by himself?
No, Blazy, no, there's no way. Let that be a lesson to all aspiring coaches, P's and B's, or competitive players. This is why in Season 8, Giannis is not allowed to be played too often. He can absolutely change the pace of these games. Titans burn it fast.
Kha'Zix already takes a trip down the portal, is going to find a kill onto Okada, but it's too little, too late. Pandemonium, close out the game, bring it back. Game 1, 40 minutes, 47 seconds.
That is a long one, and a very exciting match to boot as well. Nearly as many kills as there were minutes in this one. Joshi finally coming up in the clutch for his squad to close this one out. Pandemonium refuse to go home, going up 1-0 in this best of 3.
What an exciting game. Mifflin, I'm genuinely so pumped right now. I can't believe we have to throw it over to a break already. I could keep talking about this game for ages, but we'll leave that over to the desk. Ladies and gents, stay glued to your seats because we'll be back in a minute.
To make it best. What people like to give a little, then you take the rest. I'm hoping one day maybe I can find a place to rest. I fell in love with life and wonder where it take me next. I like the hustle and bustle. I fell in love with the fashion. I feel the pulse of the city. It's moving me like a passion and it's mine.
Hometown, baby, we go way back. All the situations, circumstances, still we don't mind. Steady going on, I ain't dancing around the street lights. Hey, I know every street sign, hanging around the block like if you are my friend, then you are welcome any moment. Yeah, yeah. City of mine, how I love this city of mine. It never gets me down, city of mine. How I love this city of mine. It never gets me down. All I ever wanted was you, but you left me alone inside these empty, broken walls, and I can't see it clearly.
know that you left me alone inside this empty, broken hall. And now you'll be the reason why my soul is tainted. Somebody help me, 'cause I'm feeling trapped and I don't know what to do. There's no one to save me from this hurt I feel deep within my bones. Did you ever think of me and see the things I did? Sold my soul and everything I was to the lowest bid. Crawled into your poison dome yet every single time. You got into my mind, you got into my mind. But all I ever wanted was you. But you left me alone inside these empty, broken walls. And I can't see it clearly, but it's obvious. I know that you left me alone inside this empty, broken hall. And now you'll be the reason why my soul is tainted. So how can I fix this? 'Cause I need to stop the aching in my head. My heart is breaking. Yeah, I'm tired of being stuck in the past. Did you ever think of me and see the things I did? Sold my soul and everything I was to the lowest bid. Crawled into your poison dome yet every single time. You
We told you this one would be contested, and I think a 40-minute game pretty much indicates that these two teams are here to play, and they're going to go head-to-head. These games will be neck-to-neck. Neck and neck? Not neck-to-neck. That'd be kind of weird. I don't know how that works out. Pandemonium, either way, in a 40-minute game, will take game number one back and forth. Pandemonium, they're in control early. They lose control after Snake Hunters have a great defense. Chaos in a lot of these team fights, and hopefully Taco has a better idea of exactly what happened there, because some of those fights, I mean, I wouldn't say they were hard to follow in the sense that I couldn't tell what was going on. It just, there were times where it didn't seem like the game plan was super clear, and that both the backliners died on either team. It just got kind of muddled there, and luckily Pandemonium able to come out on top at the end.
That's just some of the chaos that Giannis and a lot of these heavy mobility compositions tend to introduce. The target focus can get really hard to maintain, and even though we saw some really strong Emoja ultimates coming through, unfortunately they weren't able to pinpoint Joshy's location every single step of the way. And when you combine that Giannis through space and time with the likes of a Bat Out of Hell, with the likes of a Sun Wukong, all of that extra like layers of dive essentially just become really difficult for the likes of a Medusa to live through. And so despite Rapio's best efforts with his team, ultimately Snake Hunters just weren't able to keep up with that heavy mobility out of Joshy's Giannis, and Joshy had a heck of a game one for himself, Dolson. Probably one of the primary reasons why Pandemonium were even able to re-establish this game win.
It kind of nearly gets a quad there. Joshy, does get a quad here. I love the way that we kind of talk about this Giannis, and it kind of rings true here in this game. It's only a matter of time before a through space in time finds a priority target, and look at this. Joshy is full health this entire fight. 1950 at a 1950 by the end of it. And it's only a matter of time before Giannis kind of gets that space to operate. Through space and time opens it up with a great kill. Joshy was 3-2-12 going into that fight, or 3-2-11, and then adds 4 kills and an assist on the back end of it. Big damage numbers from Snake Hunters, which is somewhat unfortunate. 43,000 from Kazakhs. Rapio, I think, had a pretty decent game there on the Fenrir as well. Taco, it's just that one fight kind of went away from the Snake Hunters, and when you get late enough, I suppose that's how it is. It's a coin flip around the FG. Whoever wins at that point wins the game.
It's unfortunate for sure, but at the same time, it's just also kind of to be expected. Soul just does not have that range that Giannis can provide, not just for himself, but the entirety of Pandemonium. Was able to move pretty freely throughout all the space that those portals were creating, and even just the general agility speed us from that Giannis too, where the threshold were just too problematic to deal with. And I think Josh just did a great job playing his patience game, because when a fight breaks out, Dolson, it's just difficult to keep track of everything that's happening. And eventually you are going to forget about that Giannis, even though you know that you've been playing against it.
I mean, look, it's easy to forget about First Blood, I think, as well. That happened 40 minutes ago in game number 1, really early on there. Sarpe on the Camazotz put together a good performance there in game number 1 as well. Pandemonium 1 game away from moving on to the grand finals. Let's see how picks and bans will break down for game number 2. Snake Hunter still in that second pick spot. Pandemonium over in the first pick spot. Remember, there was heavy emphasis on getting the Ratatoskr off the table, getting Heimdall, getting Chiron away, so plenty of emphasis against Vaporish Coast there in picks and bans for game 1. If you're Pandemonium, are you sticking with it?
Pandemonium don't really have a reason to adjust their bans, considering that they were able to walk out successfully with game number 1, Dolson. So they might as well just stick to the Heimdall or the Chiron, take away some of those more immediate Vaporish Coats, aggressive style hunters, and the Ratatoskr, just because you know it's a staple comfort pick for Rapio as well. Even though he looked good on the Fenrir, it wasn't to the same ability I think that dive from the Ratatoskr actually brings. This Soul Switch up, though, is kind of interesting because it is a loose flexibility option, although you have to imagine this is more intended for mid. But leaving open the Giannis, leaving open the likes of Ryujin, Snake Hunters kind of have their pick of the litter right now for mids.
Yeah, it's a good mid situation now, I think, for the Snake Hunters. Kilcullen on the board first out of the solo lane. Sort of an interesting meta I think we're living in here, Taco, in the SCC, where SPL it has been the recent matchups felt like King Arthur, Kilcullen, that's your solo lane. Then that's just sort of how it's been. There's been, I think, a little extra emphasis, though, on Osiris here this weekend.
A little bit, and part of that is just coming through from the fact, Dolson, that I think a lot of these teams just have their solo lane preferences, as well as Osiris being one of the more dive-heavy based gods. I think that is something that has also reigned pretty true with a lot of these SCC teams at the top end. They just really want to look for that full-on backline harassment, and Gilgamesh, Amir, those are two pretty good gods for harassing a backline, also splitting up a team.
Absolutely feels great for Pandemonium then, if they're looking to find some synergy in that regard. Fafnir, Jingwei, there's plenty of synergy over there as well. Coerce on the back end of some Jingwei damage for Vaporish Coast. That's where the Snake Hunters have to look here to bounce back in this set. Let's get our ADC, let's get our, who had been the star player so far this weekend, step up, get something good in his back pocket. Second wave of bans start to roll through, and Snake Hunters, take away the Medusa, the Danzaburo as well. Heimdall is already gone, Chiron already gone, so now Pandemonium might have to get a little creative with where their hunter pick goes, though Soul could flex into that lane.
Soul could flex into that role. There's also Onher and Hu Yi. They have been some hunters that I think have tended to circulate back to the top whenever some of these other priority options have been stripped away. And I think that the escapability, the CC immunity, and the survivability with the Onher provides an excellent laning matchup into this Jingwei, and he's going to need that CC immunity when he's dealing with Fafnir.
I'm going to give you maybe the hardest question I've ever given you. Why are we bothering banning Zhang Kui? Zhang Kui is like 0-8 or something like that in competitive Smite that we've seen. And why are we taking him away for Pandemonium?
The only part that I find odd about the Zhang Kui is that Pandemonium clearly intended to pick this Nemesis for Sarpe, and them being one of the better tools at just kind of negating what Zhang Kui brings to the board. But I think it's largely is the fact that he has a really strong AoE stun that deals a lot of damage, and I do feel as though some of that Zhang Kui damage being mildly slept on right now, Dolson, but I have a feeling we're going to be seeing him a lot more often in the near future.
Look, we have some Zhang Kui proponents on our team. It's hard for me. I don't know. I'm at a loss. He's 0 for 8. I hope he's such a fun character to play, so I hope we start to see some competitive success. But let's focus on who is actually picked in here. Kilcullen, Fafnir, Jingwei, Merlin, Fenrir is Snake Hunter's draft. Is that a composition? Is that a 5-stack that gives you confidence in Snake Hunters bouncing back?
This is a really strong draft because they have a lot of solid disengage, and I think that disengage is going to be crucial when dealing with the likes of a Gilgamesh and a Mir, because if you actually end up getting locked down inside of those two gods and their cutoff potential, that could pose a lot of issues for the Snake Hunters, but they do have the tools, I believe, Dolson, to deal with this. This is looking like it could be another 40-minute slugfest.
Yeah, it was not a blowout in game number 1 by any means. Game number 2 between Pandemonium Snake Hunters, finals on the line. Blazy Bard, you there?
I am. I made it
thank
this
God.
time. I didn't get lost at the train station. I had the right ticket. I got on the right platform. Everything's fine. It's me, Blazy Bud, or young Robbie Trickett, I think, as Mifflin described me at the start of the last cast, joined by, of course, the man himself, Mifflin, or Caleb Sullivan.
Yeah, you got it.
For using full
that's
names.
my name.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, well, I mean,
sure.
if you were using full names, I'm just throwing it back to you, Mifflin.
So anyway, I'm going to talk about the pace of this game here. Pandemonium, I think, come away with a pretty intense draft, Blazy. I really do like Emilzy when he's allowed to play this Ymir pick for my money. I think it's him at his absolute best. Joshi has a phenomenal performance on the Yanis last game, and I'm sure he can do the exact same on this Soul, actually stripping away one of Pretty Prime's favorite picks here in Season 8. And then we're never going to sleep on Gilgamesh, man. I love this pick, but it is a little bit unorthodox to see it out of the Soul lane rather than the jungle.
For sure, yeah. This is something that we've been basically exclusively seeing coming out of the jungle role. So it's going to be interesting to see how Connor is going to pilot this. Sarpei going to be in the jungle. I wonder how Kha'Zix is going to react to this Gilgamesh, because even in my casuals, even in my ranked games, Mifflin, I don't really play against Gilgamesh in the Soul lane too often.
Well, it's a pretty standard lane still. I mean, Gilgamesh has great poke potential. If you ever find that stun, even at rank 1, it's about a little bit upwards of a second. So you can get a couple auto attacks off with that enhanced stim from the first ability. I mean, he's just generally a strong laner to have. Even could use the drop kick on minions and go Kumba style and try and poke that way as well. But as far as lane presence and his best part of the game, I really do feel like Gilgamesh hits his stride around level 4 and continues to have that stride until level 12. And he's just going to be one of the strongest people on the map, which is generally why we see him in the jungle, where he can have that presence on the map without having to really leave his lane and miss out on farm.
Well, we'll have to see when he gets to that level 4 to 12 mark if he's going to try and make that presence a little bit more felt in the mid lane. Also going to have to at some point leave the Soul lane anyway to try and go for that quest. Meanwhile, Rapio already in the mid lane. Under a little bit of pressure, but isn't really going to be too worried about it. Back on the doggo is Rapio this game, and honestly, I don't think it was a bad pickup for him. He played it super well in game number 1, and I'm excited to see how he's going to use it. Vaporish in some trouble here, but a beautiful disarm there from Silence should clear up any of that aggression.
It should, and you talking about Rapio on the Fenrir is almost a blast of the past. He's been running this god consistently since Season 4. He's had a lot of good success on him in the past for multiple years now, 4 years, good lord, thinking about how long we've been playing Smite. I really do like him on this pick because it allows him to facilitate his team throughout the early game through aggression, and then he transitions his style more so into an initiator come late game. Past 25-30 minutes in game 1, Rapio was initiating these fights by jumping in, ulting a Emilzy, or pulling someone off, maybe making sure Kana wasn't able to close his gap onto the back line. It was almost just a fully dedicated peel god for his team that just happens to have one of the longest forms of CC in the game inside of Ragnarok.
And if he pilots it even about a half as good as he did last game, Snake Hunter's definitely I'm looking bad. We were gassing up Pandemonium's comp at the start of this game, but I mean, Snake Hunters have a pretty good draft themselves, although I would maybe like to see a little bit more in the way of auto attack gods to synergize up with this Fafnir. I think the pick alone speaks for itself.
Well, I mean, there's plenty of auto-attack potential. Rapio's going to go for that stone-cutting sword more than likely, as well as picking up the Ninja Tabai, Vaporish Coast on this Jingwei. So I think that the Coerce in of itself is still an incredibly strong tool, despite not having that Soul pickup that we associate with it, the Soul Fafnir plus Hunter combo that's been so synonymous with Season 8, as Sarpei in a little bit of an aggressive positioning here. Doesn't seem like the Snake Hunters are willing to commit to the fight. Surprised to see Rapio is fully stacked on the passive and has the ultimate available. I really expected him to jump in on Sarpei there, but instead just lets the neutrals go their way.
For sure, Pretty Prime level 5 here as well, so could have definitely put in enough damage with potentially the fire form if they wanted to go aggressive there, but instead choosing to play it a little bit more safely, and I can't really blame them. Snake Hunters already building up a pretty decent lead here. No first blood on the table, but already about 400 gold in the lead, just from having better control of these neutral camps and these neutral objectives. So I don't really blame them, you know? They probably don't mind losing out on one camp on the left-hand side. Kozik's in a bit of trouble here, uses the ultimate to try and get that little bit of peel for himself. The Thorns are going to come through, and, well, Sarpe and Connor are just going to leave him alone.
Blazy, that's how I know you and I are fundamentally different as people. Maybe it's a more so a statement on the difference between regions. You said a decent lead and then 400 gold in the same sentence without a /S on it, man. That is absolutely wild to me. But maybe you're right. It means something. Yeah, 4 minutes in is generally like the 6-kill mark over here in the North American SCC, but that's fine. Snake Hunters are absolutely starting to build it up even further now. That 400 transitioning itself into 8, and then maybe in a couple more minutes, 1,000, and if we're lucky, a kill.
Maybe, potentially. If they feel like it, though. I don't want to put any pressure on them. You know, they can take things at their own pace. Want to make sure that they're feeling nice and comfortable. They Porish, though, certainly not feeling comfortable, able to use those beads super reactively and get away thanks to that wind gust. So he'll be just fine. Pandemonium still looking for aggression, even though they're falling a little bit far behind. Well, not even a little bit far behind, just a little bit behind. Sarpe, a little bit of trouble. No runes available for Rapio on the stun, but it's not going to matter. The Ragnarok gonna gobble up the Nemesis for first blood.
And that's what I was expecting to see just a couple minutes ago. Rapio getting involved early on here as far as European standards go. First blood going the way of the jungler on the side of Snake Hunters, and now should have an opportunity to look towards this Greater Scorpion. Interestingly enough, the Greater Scorpion on the left-hand side of the map, the Gorp, if you would, and I will, has already fallen, so whichever team decides to can group up on Pyro, and then the enemy team can make a decision. Do we want to contend with that, or do we want to go to the opposite side of the map? More than likely going to start on the Gold Fury side, as it is already a slight grouping from Pandemonium. Keep your memory up to date. Vaporish Coast does not have the beads available. Mulesy looking to optimize on that, but spotted out and taunting is Vaporish Coast.
Got a ward right there, and that's the importance, ladies and gents. I know I like to go out of my way to mention that wards don't do damage and therefore are useless, but definitely saved the life of Vaporish in this situation. Pretty Prime has made the rotation over here as well as Silence, but the rest of Pandemonium aren't going to let that happen for free. Emilzy already taking some damage, though. He's falling pretty low. Prime's going to get hit by the Divine Retribution. He's going to be just fine for now. Emilzy might not be able to say the same story. Vaporish dashing in on him. Silence just about able to get out with it. Aerial strike there from Vaporish. Able to find kill number 1. Rapio in a little bit of trouble, and he's going to get stomped down into the ground by Streak Cup. The Goomba Stomp is going to be good. 1 for 2 trade in favor of the Snake Hunters.
Legitimately, a Mulesy lives for maybe 20 seconds longer than he should have there inside of that engagement. Great use of the shards of ice to control space. No one from the Snake Hunters wanted to step into that one, and created a little bit of time so that Pandemonium could regroup and at least get something back inside of that engagement. But do not get it twisted. Snake Hunters coming out ahead there, picking up just 1 more kill than the opposition. And the gold lead that was 400 just 3 minutes ago has quickly expanded itself upwards to 1,000, nearly 1,500 in the lead, with no objectives going either way. But in the early game, pre-15 minutes, I think experience is going to be the much more important stat, and it's largely equalized at this point.
So just a good job from Pandemonium, though. I got to ask Mifflin, how do they maintain that basically even XP difference when they're falling behind on the gold so much?
They're not spending nearly as much time looking for ganks. Instead, it's been a lot more farming from Sarpe. It's been a lot more farming from everyone else on the map. Mulesy's been splitting a little bit more so than we've seen from Silence so far. And that's just allowed them to, when they're kind of just farming up, not really taking risks, to at least remain afloat insofar as they don't fall too far behind. If Snake Hunters pick up a couple more kills in the next few minutes, this could really start to balloon in their favor.
Potentially now Connor looking to potentially make a rotation towards the left lane, but scratch that. He was just taking a cheeky peek into the jungle. Pandemonium looked like they might want to take an aggressive stance there against Snake Hunters' red buff, but decided to drop it when they notice 4 members of the Snake Hunters around the same area. Slinking back off into the jungle now. Pandemonium and the Snake Hunters just kind of potentially collapsing back into the neutral, but Rapio steps up a little far, gets the jump off. Emilzy's going to be there with a freeze, but the Divine Retribution isn't quite going to be on the mark. or rather it is, but Rapio is going to use that Ragnarok to run away. Nobody on Pandemonium is going to pay for it, though. Snake Hunters survive just barely with their lives.
Man, Emilzy almost makes a textbook 3-point play, waits out the jump, blinks forward into enough range to cover the brutalize from the Fenrir, and then finds the freeze. Perfect up until that point, even remains grouped with his team that entire time, but was just, what, maybe 3 pixels off the mark with the wall, so Ragnarok just gets to go on back and towards his tower. Tough situation, and now finds himself in a little bit of trouble, dies to the dot damage, Pretty Prime picks that one up.
Devastating. Ymir's only weakness, fire. He's going to take a spill, and I do mean spill literally. He's water now. That's what happens when you put fire on ice. It turns into water, and, well, that's a pretty upsetting kill there for Pandemonium. It's unfortunate when you can get punished for a play like that, which, as you said, Mifflin, was just so near perfect. And the fact that Emilzy had to eventually end up dying for it has got to be a hit to morale.
It doesn't feel good, does it? But despite this kill disparity across the board, experience again is still largely equalized. Support, same level. The only real disparity is Kha'Zix up 1 level over his opposition in solo lane, and, well, we're getting a glimpse at solo lane right now, and we're not going to see too much more of it over here. Neither team has shown any presence from junglers or mid laners. It's just a wet noodle fight over in the short lane.
It's how it goes normally. It's exactly what these solo laners want. That's why they play the solo lane. They don't want anyone coming over and ruining their man mode. We're just going to slap each other. It's just men only dueling until the very end. So I'm sure they'll both be pretty happy about that. The totem, potentially the main point of contention here, but I don't think we're going to see any major forms of rotation coming towards it. Joshi actually might get caught out here. No mana available to the soul. Pre-beating is Rapio. The judgment is going to come through.
Wow.
He's going to take a lot of damage. Ragnarok onto Sarpei might be enough to stop Rapio from falling down, but Sarpei will claim credit for that kill. The rotation here from Vaporish Coast, though, isn't going to let it go unpunished. Down full Sarpei, 2 for 1.
Man, Rapio plays that legitimately toss spot levels. I mean, this looked like a GDQ play, like an actual robot was on the keyboard there. Pre-beads to make sure that he finishes off the kill on a Joshi, goes in the ultimate, reacts to Emilzy, going to the shards of ice, and instead holds on to the Ragnarok, transitions it to Sarpei, forces the beads, and sets up his team for the kill. That's as clean as you can get there, and it was a calculated loss of life. Rapio feels absolutely fine trading himself out.
Silence looking to make a play there onto Emilzy potentially, but Joshi unfortunately gets that whole play kickstarted by just being in lane with legitimately no mana. I don't think I've seen a mana bar that empty for a long time.
Yeah, I guess you just don't survive long enough to use up all your abilities, Blazy. Joshi, instead, though, had been farming for a while, clearing out those waves. Just kidding, have some fun at your expense. But for now, not much on the map for either team to be fighting over. Kana doing his best to just be annoying and stop Kha'Zix's back. But so far, the root of aggression has always been inside this mid 3v3, and neither team has won a fight clean enough to look towards either the Pyro or the Gold Fury. We could see, now that we're starting to approach that level 12 mark for the majority of players in the lobby, with the second relic available, we could see them start to group up on the gold, and it is Snake Hunters starting it up first.
It's going to burn quickly, especially if Prime has that fire stance available to him, but instead opting to drop it. Already Sarpei in a lot of danger here. Going to get picked up there. Both dashes already expended, but Rapio's going to fall down to the impale.
He lives?
Sarpei just barely survives, but the same can't be said about Pretty Prime, who's going to fall down to Joshi here. Connor going in now, trying to make a play onto Vaporish. He makes it up into the sky. Ice Silence running away now, but a beautiful 3-man knock up there from Kha'Zix is going to disrupt Pandemonium enough. He's going to get that angry mode now from all those rage stacks that he's been able to build up. Unfortunately, the squishy target in the form of Street Cup has left the area. Joshi 1v2ing over here on the top side. Vaporish gets kicked into a wall, but Joshi now could be in some danger from Kha'Zix. Gonna scream right in his face. Pandemonium should be more than fine here. Picking up this red buff on the way out, and maybe even a Gold Fury.
They should be able to group up. Kha'Zix, no ultimate available, no transformation either. Doesn't even have the blink, so cannot work his way back forward. Instead, now Pandemonium in the driver's seat. Vaporish Coast trying to step forward, but gets spotted out by Kana, who's playing goaltender here. First neutral objective of the game going down at the 14-minute mark, and it's going to go the way of Pandemonium. Does a great job closing up that gold lead Snake Hunters had established for themselves, but the Snake Hunters are not going to make it easy. They do not want to let it go for free, and instead able to at least get some of it back through the Pyromancer. Now both easy neutral objectives have fallen on the map, so we could see both teams start to reset back to neutral. Pandemonium, though, I think, are in a much better position than they were just a couple moments ago. Could look to try and find some aggression.
Potentially, but where, Mifflin? Where's the aggressive point here? I don't think Snake Hunters are really going to want to take a fight.
That's what I was thinking, but then I realized we're at 10 kills in 14 minutes, and all of those kills essentially had been inside the mid 3v3, so we could potentially, and I do mean potentially, it's a slim chance, see them group up and try and siege out one of these tier 1 towers. With no neutral objectives left on the map, it also opens the door for these junglers to get a little bit more willy-nilly, if you would, with their ganks. Could start to rotate over the soul lane without having to worry about the gold fury, or the duo lane without having to worry about the pyromancer, and it just allows them to play slightly more aggressive on the map.
Potentially, and you're absolutely right. Pandemonium could very easily take this mid tower or any tower on the map if Joshi is in so much of the 3-mile radius. If Joshi sneezes on a tier 1 tower this stage in the game, got the Charon's coin, got the Spear of the Magus online, that tower should be gone. Although, actually, that being said, Mifflin, Charon's coin over a lifesteal item.
Emilzy, Joshi, and Sarpei setting up the ambush. Pretty Prime uses the flicker a little too early and loses his life for his efforts. Rapio now on his last legs, able to work his way out of there with the Ragnarok. That's what we were talking about, Blazy. These mid 3v3s, they keep happening, and now Pandemonium have a tower exposed to them. 4-man grouping, might as well take it down.
You called it perfectly, Mifflin. Now Joshi and Streak Up are here alongside Sarpei, 3 super deadly auto attack based characters. Streak Up's going to leave it to the jungler and the mid laner, though. This tier 1 tower should pull down pretty quickly. You can see all that heat building up in those soul auto attacks, and already 16 minutes in, first tier 1 of the game will fall. And now Pandemonium starting to make up some of that gold lead that Snake Hunters have. If we have a look at the graphs, it should only be around about 800 gold now, which is roughly what they had about 8 minutes in.
Man, you could just really see what Emilzy's brought to this Pandemonium roster, that veteranship and that shot calling to find these opportunities. How many times this game already, just 16 minutes in, have we seen Emilzy, Sarpei, and Joshi grouped up as a clump in the jungle, just rotating around, seeing if maybe they can catch someone unawares, and it's been working out for them pretty consistently so far. Sure, they haven't been able to confirm the kills, but they've always had the upper hand on the initial engagement. Now, Snake Hunters trying to maybe do the exact same thing. Take a play from Pandemonium's book. Rapio, Pretty Prime, and Silence grouped up, but it's just the Oracles this time around.
Nothing really on the map just yet for either of these two teams to really fight over, though that might not stop them. Emilzy, if he had stepped a little bit further up, I bet you we see a jump in from Silence there with that Sunder currently available to him. Upgraded Horrific Emblem is going to be the secondary relic here for Silenced. Really doesn't want Snake Hunters to get away from him. Pandemonium.
No, it's so good up against this Ymir as well. No slow immunity, no heavenly sprints picked up. It's decent into on her. If his ultimate's down, it's just going to be a really good tool to help out with these elongated fights, especially considering the pace of Game 1. There are a lot of engagements where Snake Hunters were able to displace Pandemonium, but just could not quite chase out their kills.
They Poorish, forced to use the beads already. Emilzy running away, going to be able to sidestep the hammer, and that should be all she wrote for that fight. Not really too concerned is the big snowman Kha'Zix. Could be in a little bit of a bad spot, but actually it's probably Joshi and Connor who could find themselves a little bit uncomfortable. Connor able to jump away, so he'll be just fine. The rest of Snake Hunters looking towards the right-hand side here. Just going back to neutral now, Mifflin.
But finally an objective. A POI on the map is going to be respawning very shortly. Primal Fury coming up in the next couple of seconds could be where we see some of this aggression get rooted in the near future. Snake Hunters on the right-hand side of the map, pretty far away, is going to create an opportunity for Pandemonium, who's got a little bit more left side leanings, to set up the defensive positioning. Keep your eyes on Kana. When your soul lane makes a rotation over here, you better believe it's going to be a commitment.
and committing potentially to Ice Silence to Sarpei. Never mind, just going to slice him up a little bit, you know. He doesn't mind, just slice him up a little bit with that katana as the rest of Pandemonium come on in and burn through this Primal Fury. Goodbye, wasn't even there in the first place. Who knows when Ice Silence and Kozik's jumping in, but the counter engage is going to be good from Pandemonium. Already half health is Emilzy. Vaporish could be the next one in some danger, but Josh is going to be the one turned around on. 2 kills for the Snake Hunters, but Streak Up going to find Vaporish Coast in trade. Charging down now is Kozik's looking to find the Anha. Can he find the root? Yes, he can, but the beads should be on the mark. Dashing forward now, Kozik's. Connor could be the next POI. He's going to get taken down, surrounded by 4 members of the Snake Hunters. Primal may have gone to Pandemonium, but the fight was in favor of the red team.
I was just singing the praises of Emilzy's shot calling, but it's not often that it's so evident on the field what the communications are like. Pandemonium, after securing the Primal Fury, had a 4-man core saying, hey, let's get out of here, not much to fight over, and Emilzy turns around, sees that he can find a wall, does so, and immediately trades out his life, baits Joshi out of position as well, and then Pandemonium take a very poor engagement. Now Snake Hunters able to do exactly what they did last time around, get the Pyromancer in trade for the Gold Fury. I was almost expecting them to look towards the Fire Giant itself, considering Pretty Prime has such good burn potential, as well as Rapio has great consistent damage with the Stone Cutting Sword Seething Howl combo. But instead, they're going to go for the safer objective, the Pyromancer. Neither team really has a large enough lead to look at the Fire Giant. 20 minutes into the game here. 1,500 in the lead are Snake Hunters. I think we could, again, see another reset to neutral until one of these easier-to-kill objectives respawns.
Absolutely. I'm assuming we're going to be in for another long game here, Mifflin. 6 to 9 kills on the board, 20 minutes in. And there's no real lead, right? 20 minutes in, what is 2,000 gold? You know, like, that's not really going to make a difference hugely either way, but Emilzy falling down here could potentially, I say potentially, he got sundered, and the rest of the Snake Hunters are all there. With that kill, they could definitely look to start this Fire Giant up, and that's exactly what they're going to do. They have Vaporish here, and so is Rapio and Kozik's, but it looks like they're just baiting it over for now. The rest of Pandemonium looking to make their rotation through. I don't really have a huge amount of secure outside of Pretty Prime's abilities. Fire Giant still half HP, but the judgment is going to come down here onto Silence, and it's going to go down. He falls up. Hey, going to follow him down next. O'Connor is burning to the smelly finger from Merlin. He might fall down, but it's actually the Juke Shoe's going to keep him alive for now. The rest of Snake Hunters spot that out, though. They're going to help out Merlin close out that kill. 3 for 1 yet again over an objective for the Snake Hunters.
Man, Rapio on this Fenrir is just too comfortable inside of these engagements. Great use of the Ragnarok to reposition himself and then rejoin the fight. And that all starts with Emilzy getting caught out inside the jungle. Ymir, double-edged sword, has phenomenal jungle fight presence when on the initiative, when acting as the aggressor. But when initiated on, well, he gets hit by a Fafnir hammer, gets a little taste of the Sunder, and then does not live much longer after that. Does not have the greatest escape potential. Maybe we see him pick something up like a Winged Blade to help out a little bit with that magic defense, as well as slow immunity. But for now, with Emilzy's build, if he gets initiated on, man's just dead.
Yeah, absolutely. He's at the stage of the game where Ymir is either doing everything or nothing, and well, Emilzy is somehow breaking that trend. He's still getting some stuff done, but as you said, as soon as he steps up, he's in a lot of trouble. Has to use the blink defensively there, but Rapio now stepping forward. There's the ultimate. Sarpei pulled out of position. No feeds available for him. Knocked up. Snake Hunters able to find the Fire Giant as well. Sarpei can't dash away with Rapio right on his butt. Up, down goes the dog, but it's not going to matter. Never mind. Kozik's able to finally find that kill in the front line here. Kozik's now taking this aggressive positioning. Emilzy all the way up north. He's trying to just run away at this point. Couldn't make his way back to his team without getting caught out. Gonna press the B button. Meanwhile, Snake Hunters should be able to push this advantage all the way down the right-hand side.
Fire Giant on 5 members, and Sarpei dead for the next 30 seconds. Not many tools expended on the side of Pandemonium that are going to be too important here. Joshi maintains his ultimate, as does Kana. The Winds of Shamash going to be great on objective siege defenses, so Snake Hunters, privy to that, decide, alright, well, there's plenty of towers left to strip away. We might as well do that, or set up an ambush inside the jungle. Emilzy spotted out, dropping the ward, but the hammer not quite on the mark. but it's not too bad for the Snake Hunters. Consolation prize chipping away his tier 1 tower, potentially a tier 2, and then they get back up to the Oni Fury.
Absolutely. They're not looking for the tier 2, but Oni Fury is definitely on the menu, just about spawning, and this could open up their way into the left-hand side, back into mid, wherever. There are a lot of places that they can go after bursting down this objective, and it will be bursted, Mifflin. It's already gone before I finish my sentence. Goodbye, Oni Fury. Opting now to back, spend up all this gold that they have. 4 out of 5 members already level 20, so should be seeing all, if not most, of these starter items upgraded.
Yeah, it seems like it. Rapio just sells his and instead looks towards the Void Shield. Wants a little bit more survivability, but I can only finish it up to the spiked tier at this point. But take a peek at the map, Blazer. There's plenty of gold to rectify that issue. And with this Fire Giant power play so early in the game by European standards, they could go ahead and just not go for the Phoenix and instead strip away these towers, pick up the Pyromancer, and that would be an immense gold swing in favor of the Snake Hunters. I'm not expecting Pandemonium to group up too hard, especially in that tier 1 that is literally a breath away from falling down. But these tier 2s, the Pandemonium has such a good draft for slowing down pushes. A Mulesy can play from a range, drop the wall, and just being annoying to make sure these towers stay up a little bit longer. The poke from a distance is great from Joshi, also able to keep these minion waves out as well. But this positioning from a Mulesy is concerning me. He's the only one this far up. If he gets engaged on, could fall quickly.
There's the wall, as you said, just preventing the Snake Hunters from being able to do any damage this wave. But meanwhile, in the mid lane, Rapio is going to solo down that tier 2. And well, Snake Hunters really only need 1 or 2 good looks at that tower already. Taking down about a quarter of its HP without a minion wave and with about a half second of them being in to try and do some damage. Rapio might be able to wrap around towards the left-hand side here if he so chooses, but instead looking to keep up the pressure, potentially looking for a Phoenix here. Sapei is the only one really here looking for him, forced to use the ultimate just to create the space. Meanwhile, on the left-hand side, the tier 2's already gone. Blinking, you'll miss it, Mifflin. Phoenix, the next one on the menu.
It is not much longer left on this Fire Giant push. Snake Hunters gonna have to play very intelligently with what remains on that timer. Pandemonium done a great job so far of slowing down this push. It was a Mulesy doing exactly that, dropping the wall and saying, all right, wait 7 seconds.
Kha'Zix and Silenced already falling down to half HP. That's the front line nearly gone there, Mifflin. Both of them, Winds of Shemesh, are dropped. That's basically all of the utility available for Pandemonium. Every single one of their ultimates is now down. Snake Hunters, though, are going to take that as their cue to leave. This Fire Giant, I don't believe, has too much time left on it. FG should respawn in about a minute and a half, 2 minutes. So Snake Hunters are going to take what they have. They got 3 extra towers from that secondary push. And I would say, personally, Mifflin, getting, what was it, 5 or 6 towers off the board with 1 FG was worth it.
Legitimately 6 towers. Every single one of them was still standing post Fire Giant, first Fire Giant of the game, and the buff does wear off, so we're going to see it spawn up in just about 40 seconds here. Snake Hunters should be able to establish themselves a pretty easy defensive positioning. Taking a peek at that right-hand side of the map, not many wards placed whatsoever by Pandemonium, who are just now starting to step forward and really only placing incredibly defensive wards. Do not have the greatest vision on the Fire Giant itself, but a Mulesy drops an intriguing ward on the Fire Giant that does have vision on the objective, and it's not spotted out by the Snake Hunter's Sentry. Great information supplied by Pandemonium.
It's gonna be important for them to try and get this. Pandemonium are down, but certainly not out. Snake Hunters just looking for this defensive play. You just wowing at that ward, Mifflin, or have you spotted something else?
Yeah. No, that ward is just so good. Mulesy has all the info he needs, and Snake Hunters have no clue about it. There's no reason for Pandemonium to step forward until that objective gets pulled, and, well, the Snake Hunters think they have the vision. They just don't.
Well, in that case, this should be a pretty open and closed situation for Pandemonium. Should be able to pretty cleanly have a look at this FG. Already pulled a Porish, taking a chunk of damage that gets knocked up by the FG. And the Snake Hunters are done with their first flut with the Fire Giant, leaving it at about half HP. Pandemonium now just flirting with the idea of a fight. Kozix already gets sundered there through with Nemesis ult. Hits 3 people with a knockup, but it's not going to be good for now. So far, Connor in a lot of trouble. Meanwhile, in the backup, Streak Up gets picked up by the Ragnarok. O'Connor already falls down, and next will be Sarpei. Kozix could be in a lot of trouble here. The Ragnarok, Brutalize, going to do a lot of damage to Streak Up. Emilzy is going to take a spill, but Kozix walks out alive, Mifflin. Barely 1 HP left on this Kakalan, but he's going to be just fine. And now with only Joshi and Streak Up available, no ultimate available for the Soul either, this Fire Giant is absolutely free.
For just a moment there, I thought Pandemonium was going to get away with murder. Streak Up was able to sink maybe 20 autos into the enemy gods before anyone was able to close gap onto him. And then I looked at Streak Up's build and realized it was Aussie Executioner Wind Demon Short Sword. It's an interesting build, but he really needs that Deathbringer before he's going to get a lot of value from it. Had he had just the yellow damage build or an Odysseus' bow, I think we were looking at triple, maybe quadra kill territory, but instead now it's base defense territory.
Absolutely, and look at how quickly that right Phoenix fell. Snake Hunters already chewing their way through bird number 2. It may as well be Thanksgiving, because that turkey is cooked. Now they're looking over towards the left-hand side. Pandemonium in a bit of a tough spot, Mifflin. What's the defense plan?
Hope that Snake Hunters don't regroup, I suppose. It's going to be a tough one on the defense. It's make sure they don't close gap into the enemy base is really the truth of it. They've got great tools through Pandemonium to at least control space. Emilzy has that wall to make sure that Snake Hunters are at least split up on the engagement. Joshi still playing a semi-orthodox mage, could keep minion waves out relatively easily as well. But it's been a very consistent game plan from both Pandemonium and Snake Hunters. Every single engagement has started with Emilzy moving forward, trying to find the freeze, and then finding maybe 1 or 2 targets, followed up by Sarpei's ultimate, the final judgment, or the retribution rather, and then nothing comes of it. Snake Hunter's playing the disengage role up until that point, and then once those tools are expended, immediately it's the counter engage, be it Rapio going in first with the Ragnarok or Eye Silence, just sundering Emilzy when he roots himself in place with the Shards of Ice ultimate. And then from there, things have generally fallen apart for Pandemonium. I want to see them clean up these engagements and pick up the kills.
Well, we'll be able to see if they put that knowledge to the test soon enough, Mifflin, as the Snake Hunters now looking to posture around this left side Phoenix. They've gone through the jungle, they've cleaned up everything else they could possibly clean up, setting up that movement speed field to the right-hand side, just in case anyone needs a quick escape. Connor just trying to play it safe here, moving his way forward, looking for a good opportunity to summon those Winds of Shemesh.
It's Emilzy and Kana acting as goaltender here inside of this engagement. Rapio doesn't have much to do because all the other Phoenixes have already been cleared out. So instead, he's trying to put pressure on the Titan by putting the wave in. And Sarpei, doesn't look like you win that auto trade. Rapio getting the better end of this one, as it is a 1 versus 1 inside the Titan room and a 4v4 on the left-hand side.
I think, is Rapio just gonna start attacking the Titan 1v1 here? This is unprecedented. No one is rotating. He's been hit by the Divine Judgment. He's doing damage to that Titan. Sarpei could be in some trouble, forced to use the beads. Meanwhile, on the Phoenix Siege, Winter Shemesh finally dropped there. Emilzy in a little bit of trouble. He's forced up into that dragon form. Sorry, scratch that. Ice Silenced is up in the dragon form. Emilzy is definitely still in a little bit of trouble, though, but not as much as Connor is. Gonna get hit by that shred, but
huge freeze!
Sarpei is here, trying to do some damage, and the whole Snake Hunters aren't falling pretty low, but Pandemonium is falling low. Emilzy is gonna be the next one to fall here. Rapio takes credit for that kill. Connor up downs, looking to find something. Streak Up is gonna fall. Pretty Prime finds another one, but it's not gonna matter. The fight is irrelevant, Mifflin, because the Titan falls, and Snake Hunters take us to a game 3.
What a tough situation. That was a miracle freeze on the defense. My man Emilzy hit 4 people there, but nobody on the side of Snake Hunters falls to that one. Rapio essentially doing it all for his team towards the end, just bringing in 2 fire minion waves as well as forcing out Sarpei and stripping away his ultimate. Look, not often do I call for adaptations like this. Ban the Fenrir. Rapio looks so much better on this pick than he does on the majority of his other gods, barring Ratatasker, which I think is still his best pick. But he's been running these games so dominantly that I think maybe at least test him, see if he's got something else in the back pocket.
Well, they've got nothing to lose, really. They got to make a change for Game 3. This is the second time we've seen Pandemonium struggle in the early. Just this time, they weren't able to turn it around in the late. Mifflin, we're going to go to a quick break, and then the desk will break down the rest of the game.
Trouble, you best beware. And though deep down, I know I might be headed for teardrops. Now that you got me started, I just can't stop. No, no. 'Cause I love you, baby. I can't let you go, baby. I gotta tell you that I won't. I've been looking for love so true. When I was down and down, along came you. Though you might be a liar and a cheat too, I just can't quit you now 'cause I love you. Yes, I do. I can't let you go, baby. I can't let you go, baby. 'Cause I love you, I love you, I love you. No, no, no.
Well, it's about time one of our predictions is right here this weekend. We figured this one would go 3, and finally, one of these sets over here in EU is actually going 3 games. Snake Hunters bounce back in just over 30 minutes here in game number 2 of this set. Give Pandemonium a run for their money, and now there's one final game, do or die, game 3, finals officially on the line. And remember, an extra like 10 grand in prize money on the line here for this one as well, just to make it to the final. So a lot to play for here. Taco's still with me to break down the second game of this set. And Taco, this one obviously a little bit quicker, about 10 minutes quicker than what we saw there in game number 1. What'd you see from Snake Hunters that gave them the win?
Snake Hunters are largely just bleeding out Pandemonium inside of their fountain room. Once they were able to siege one Phoenix, that just trickled into another Phoenix. And when you have 2 different fire minion waves to try and deal with at the same time as trying to maintain a base defense in general on that last surviving Phoenix, it's just too much to handle. And Rapio, the same could be said for him with this Fenrir, too much for any singular member or even the whole of Pandemonium to really deal with. He was able to just relentlessly dive that back line and was applying so much pressure. And again, once he got those Phoenixes established in Snake Hunter's favor, it was just really difficult because Sarpe was forced to divert his attention elsewhere from the team fights, and being isolated into the 1v1 with the Fenrir, he's not actually getting a chance to utilize his kit. It all just kind of unfolds there for Pandemonium.
You can kind of see some of the confidence Coast was playing with here this game at the beginning of most of these clips. It's Rapio in the back alongside Kha'Zix as well. And then Vaporish Coast kind of has this second wind in these fights. Kha'Zix, a fantastic game on the Kokolin as well, 27,000 damage. Always going to feel good. It just felt like maybe a little bit too much there, Taco. The Fenrir plus Kokolin dive just didn't really have an answer there from Pandemonium. 4-0-10 for Kha'Zix, and then 7-3 and 11 for Rapio. Felt like the engage was really getting it done this game.
Yeah, just so much displacement from the entire front line of Snake Hunters that it just gave a lot of openings for Vaporish to take advantage of. And Vaporish honestly wasn't even top of the player damage charts as far as the carries are concerned. Pretty prime.
Good
actually leading the way here for the Snake Hunters, but he was in that same department as Vaporish. Whenever you see a Merlin and Jingwei having the opportunities to free cast, a Jingwei more especially having the chance to use her agility forward, usually not the place you want to be in.
Yeah, big difference when you're seeing airstrikes flying in at you and you're on the other team. We're not happy about that. Airstrikes going the other way tend to be a pretty good thing in that regard. So Pandemonium will now have to bounce back. Momentum swings on over towards the Snake Hunters. Picks and bans wise, are we now in a position, Taco, going into picks and bans for Game 3, where Pandemonium might need to consider changing up some of those bans?
Maybe the Fenrir prioritization could shift here for Pandemonium. I don't think they're in the wrong if they still choose to try and focus out Vaporish with the Heimdall or the Chiron and the Ratatosker for Rapio. Those bans definitely make sense because they're very specifically geared towards those 2 players from the Snake Hunters, but as opposed to prioritizing the Soul Pick, for example, they could just look to maybe take that Fenrir for themselves. Rapio's gotten to play for 2 games in a row now. Game 1, despite Snake Hunters losing, Rapio still had a really strong showing on the Fenrir, and if they're not going to go for the Fenrir for Sarpe, then perhaps throwing him onto another early game-based assassin that won't be as susceptible to that brutalized damage.
Pandemonium don't want Sarpe on that Fafnir. Fafnir is going to get banned away. It's the first big pivot now that we've seen from Pandemonium. Been heavy priority on the Vaporish Coast. Now Rapio receives a little bit of love in the ban columns. Fafnir gets taken away as well as the Fenrir. So I can say both of those without getting them mixed up this time because they're both banned out. Giannis, Tiamat both follow up. That means Osiris is open. That means Osiris will grab first pick.
Pandemonium just wanting to make sure that they have a very strong back line diver, and that's really been the name of the game for both of these 2 teams, Dolson. For what it's worth, both of these teams we've seen now in games 1 and 2 have those, whichever side has the better dive tends to be the side coming out on top, and Giannis not being in the mix since he's been banned away makes it all the more difficult to rely on mobility to escape to safety. But Vaporish getting one of his staple hunter picks here, the Heimdall, that's definitely going to put some pressure onto Streak Up, and Pandemonium's response, Chiron, Raijin, makes sense. Lots of early game pressure, lots of good damage for follow-up.
With the Kokolin being banned out instead of the Heimdall, I almost figured we would end up seeing that Heimdall there for Coast. Soul as well. So you'd like to have the Fafnir now if you're Snake Hunters, but so high in priority that I think maybe makes some sense to ban away. Give Sobek on over to that dual lane as well. Maybe add a little pressure to a lane where Chiron is going to have plenty into this early game. So now the second wave of bans roll through. Maybe no surprise that the Snake Hunters trying to mitigate some of the pressure in the dual lane that could come through. Terra and Yirmi are both heat of ban.
Kha'Zix also getting particularly banned out this set alongside of Rapio, losing that Kali and the Sun Wukong. So again, it's just these extended team fights that the Pandemonium are trying to avoid. They are looking to be quick and concise with the burst damage that they've already drafted for. Cerberus pickup, though, is still an interesting frontlining asset here for the Snake Hunters. Does still have a lot of that displacement effect as well. The Snake Hunters have been utilizing to have more clear team fights as far as target focus is concerned, but my main issue is that Sol and Heim do have a fair bit of survivability behind them, and they can definitely create some space on those disengages, so it could pose some issues for that Chiron, Raijin, and Osiris, but the Tsukuyumi, kind of one of the best assets in terms of cutting the gap.
Yeah, it'll be an interesting pick to play into whatever Snake Hunters choose to go with in the jungle here. Camazotz ends up being the answer. Thought on the Cerberus, that's something that Kha'Zix has played in the past and looked pretty good on, so Snake Hunters with a finals berth on the line, going to a pick that they've found some success for. Camazotz, though, the last pick here for Snake Hunters. Are you happy with it? Does that round out the draft nicely for you here, Taco?
If Rapio is able to effectively jump into the back line and just constantly harass Joshi on this Raijin and basically neutralize the effects that Taiko Drums might have, because you might have to look for early cancellations on that ultimate as opposed to just being able to lay out all of that damage throughout the extent of a team fight, or even just those early groupings where they're looking for possible pressure or just map pressure in general. Camazotz just makes that tricky.
He does, and then Pandemonium on the other side have to deal with some of the slipperiness that the Camazotz is going to be bringing to the table. They have Osiris, Chiron, Raijin, Tsukuyomi, Xingchen, an interesting final pick here for Pandemonium. Is that a pick, do you think, that rounds out the Pandemonium draft in a nice way?
Pandemonium were definitely lacking in terms of crowd control. They've got all this damage and dive potential, but if they don't have any actual lockdown potential, then what use is the burst? So I like the Xingchen here. I think that for a Milzy especially, it's going to introduce an important team fighting asset where they actually do have the chance to really just buckle down on one, if not both of those carries.
I am curious. This is a bit of a zoomed out conversation. If you're Elysium, who do you want to see, or maybe who do you not want to see win this matchup?
Honestly, when it comes to pick your poison exchanges here, Dulcin, I think both of these teams could pose a pretty serious threat.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on that one, Taco. Elysium, not excited about either of these two teams coming through the way they're playing today. Game number 3, one last time. Blazy Bard and Mifflin will take us in.
One more shot, one more chance. Both of these teams have one more game to play to try and stay in this tournament and make it to the grand finals against Elysium. You know, I'm going to ask you the same question that Dulcin asked Taco, Mifflin. Which team of these two do you think Elysium is more scared to face going into those finals?
Blazy, I'm going to take the same cop-out answer Taco took, but I'm going to take it a different direction. I think, personally, and this is full Toxic Mifflin Unleashed, if I'm Elysium, I don't care, man. Elysium looks so strong during this weekend and during the regular season so far that I feel like they're happy to take on all comers here. I don't even think it brushes my mind if I'm a Death King.
Okay, well, fair enough. We had two different answers, I guess, in if you want to look at it from a tonal shift, but for sure, I'm kind of with you. Elysium have looked out of their mind this weekend. I'm pretty sure the only game they dropped so far was the game where Spudio had to take a step out for Ulka in game number 1 of their first set. Already got a little bit of a pause here, Mifflin, so we can take this time and kind of. Can we talk about the fact that Vaporish is back on Heimdall for this game?
And Vaporish Coast on Heimdall is legitimately a big deal. I was hoping you were going to take us that direction, Blazy. Mm-hmm. He looks incredibly strong on this pick. I mean, how many times yesterday did he take 2v1s and then just send one person up to Niflheim and say, all right, now it's a 1v1 and you straight up just lose this engagement because my name is Vaporish Coast, the Penta Kid. I think that it's going to be very important for the Snake Hunters to have him on that comfortable pick, considering how much emphasis we saw in the P's and B's towards Rapio, both Fenrir and Ratatasker, his two best picks removed in the first phase of bans. Well, that opens the door for picks like Heimdall for the young Vaporish Coast.
They also banned Connor off of that Kakulans. Like we've seen him play. I think I'm right in saying it's both games. Don't want to mince my words here, but he's looked definitely strong on it when we've seen him play it. So gotta respect both of those sets of bans. They don't want Connor on anything he's comfortable in, and they don't want Rapio on anything that he's comfortable on. So I'm interested to see how the adaptation's gonna come through. Silenced already in some trouble. It's happened again. He hit level 2, and Streak Up just dashed at him.
Yeah, no, Silence chose death here. That was a blink forward from the Sobek trying to find the pluck, and well, I mean, it does not work out. If there's anything you learn here today, fans at home, don't fight Chiron in the early game. Pretty prime forced to use that beads defensively. In a little bit of trouble here, finds the slow on Sarpay, and it is just enough to get him out of that sticky situation. And again, to emphasize, in case in the excitement you forgot what I said there, fans at home, do not fight Chiron at level 2.
Yeah, it's I think me and Gore had the exact same conversation, set 1 of this weekend, and that is some people, I guess, still just forget that as soon as Chiron hits level 2, he's just gonna dash at you, do 1,000,000 damage with those auto attacks, send you back flying, and you're gonna die, this time by Silence on the receiving end of it. And that's gonna set Emilzy and Streak Up on a pretty dangerous path here. Chiron, not one of those gods you want to let get ahead of you.
No, not at all, especially considering how aggressive the composition is from Pandemonium this time around. Not only is it Streak Up on the Chiron, but Emilzy on the Jing Shen is going to get involved a lot more easily. The Skyhook, a great tool to use, as well as just having that additional escapability. CC immunity in the ultimate that doesn't root you in place, a double jump, and then you got Sarpay out of the jungle on this Tsukiyomi. If somehow, some way, people survive that initial engagement from Streak Up and Emilzy, well, Piercing Moonlight's one of the best chase tools in the game, full stop. So I'm expecting to see, or I was expecting to see rather, Pandemonium rotate over for that purple buff invade, but instead we saw Sarpay just on the right hand side of the map picking up some farm.
Wants to get a little bit more farm under his belt, as you said, and you know, we can go back to what we were saying earlier, Mifflin, about the pace of the game being determined by the starter items. This time, Sarpay choosing to go for that Bumba's dagger. Is that indicative of the pace of this game, or is it just better, Tsukiyomi?
Tsukiyomi just benefits so much from the auto attacks inside of the passive, as well as being able to sustain up in lane. Blink forward from Emilzy does not quite find the route this time around. A nice pluck from Silence in the opposite direction brings him to the realm of safety. But this is a much faster pace from Pandemonium this time around. That is what maybe the third attempted fight start from Pandemonium in just 4 minutes. They are trying to expedite the pace. Maybe worried about how well Snake Hunter's team fight is going to scale to the late game with a pseudo double hunter draft, as well as just having an immaculate front line inside of Kha'Zix and Silence, Cerberus, and Sobek respectively, with Rapio acting as a solo agent. I think late game Snake Hunter's team fight going to be very hard to deal with.
And this isn't just any Cerberus either, Mifflin. This is Kha'Zix's Cerberus, one of the most powerful gods we've seen him play. If anything, the Herculean that we've seen him on for the rest of the set is kind of like a mini version, right? Has anti-heal in the kit, has a big AoE circle knockup as the ultimate, is a big body character, gonna get right up in your face. So kind of, Herculean is the light version of the Cerberus here, and Kha'Zix definitely knows how to make the most out of this character. Going for that Tainted Steel into the power boots. There isn't really any healing on Pandemonium's side. Is this... why the Tainted Steel?
Maybe we're talking about Chiron's passive, potentially the lifesteal that's going to come through from builds here. It generally is just a pretty nice pickup for Cerberus. Synergizes incredibly well with his passive in general, so I'm not willing to argue against it too much going forward. I am interested to see that he did elect to go for the lifesteal boots. Generally, tank boots are pretty nice for solo laners as well as just cooldown, but maybe it's got something to do with how he's electing to build. Perhaps we see him go for something like the Breastplate of Valor. Doesn't want to overcap on the CDR, and instead, additional power, going to help him out ever so slightly.
Absolutely. Likes playing very aggressively, does Kha'Zix, and an early Forp getting picked up here by Pandemonium. They're not certainly going to complain. And Mifflin, I think this is the first time we've seen Pandemonium with a lead this early on in the game, and what a lead it is. 1,500 gold here at 6 minutes.
And with no neutral objectives having gone down just yet, that is an incredibly commanding lead. Experience also largely in their favor as well. 1,000 going their way. this earlier pace that's been established already could be indicative of how they're trying to approach this game as Rapio goes in on a Joshi, forced into the Taiko Trumps, and surrounded on all sides.
Numbed from the water realm, Rapio is going to pay for it for his life, though. Silence could also be in danger of falling down here, and with the rotation from Kana, that might is going to turn into certainly a 2-for-1 trade in favor of Pandemonium, but Joshi being the one to fall down could open up some opportunities here for Pretty Prime.
It could. Pretty Prime getting a little bit more experience under his belt, but Prime not getting any of those kills is not going to lead to a very large disparity. And Pandemonium, if Joshi falls a half level, maybe even an entire level down on Soul at this point in the game, just relative strength of God, means that Raijin doesn't feel too bad. His early game is by and large just so much better. Has the traditional leap inside a Thunderclap to set up for his jungler, great damage from a range, and his ultimate is already going to be very impactful inside of these team fights. I think half a level, that's within the realm of acceptable losses.
Both Scorpions are down on the map already, and the Gold Fury probably looking like the next place that Pandemonium want to start looking at. And I would almost say it's too early for them, and it most certainly is. They don't have anything quite as powerful of a shred as the Soul this time around. But, I mean, give them a couple more minutes. Maybe we see the first Gold Fury fight around 12?
Maybe. Generally around level 12 is what I've noticed that the EUCC, or SCC rather, likes to play around these neutral objectives. Once that second relic becomes available, it opens up some nuanced approaches to these engagements. I'm very excited to see how Emilzi's going to elect to itemize, goes for the blink in his first slot. Generally, Sunder considered to be the best relic for supports right now, just because of how much easier it makes it to finish off these kills. So could go that route, could potentially pick up the Heavenly if he's worried about maybe this lurking in the waters from Eye Silence slowing out his team. So keep your eyes on Pandemonium support to see how they're looking to approach these team fights. And keep your eyes on generally the levels if you're waiting for a neutral objective.
Just some more neutral clearing at the moment. Kha'Zix Paralyzing Spit does so much damage already to Kana, even though he's already got those tank boots online, even though he's already got that enchanted Kusari. Probably looking to go into, I can only assume to be the Shoguns. I couldn't imagine it would be the Genjis for Osiris, right?
No, I don't think so, but Kana is a bit of a trailblazer with his build, so could go either way with it this time around. Well, I'll keep my eyes peeled and see how he elects to build this one, as a blink-in from Emilzi finds the double root, but Joshi not quite in range to follow up. No damage output there, which means that there's no threat on the board that the Snake Hunters have to be worried about. Beads maintained by Pretty Prime.
Now just making the rotation here is Kha'Zix. Kana right behind him could be setting up for a pretty interesting engagement. Joshi nearly falls down again to that Stellar Burst Supernova combo. Kana could be in some trouble here as well. Rapio is going to be pretty sticky, but the tether being available for him should stop out any aggression there, and he'll be able to walk away back to lane just fine. And Pandemonium seem to have taken their foot off the gas pedal a little bit here, Mifflin, and I'm not sure if that's going to end up favoring them.
It's still a 2,000 gold lead, though. They've been able to control the neutral camps. Mid camp's been largely going their way, and it hasn't been for lack of trying on finding these kills. I mean, right there, that fight starts off with Emilzi blinking in aggressive and just does not have the follow-up that he needs. We are starting to rapidly approach that second relic slot, and Pandemonium does have a pretty sizable advantage at the 10-minute mark that could lead them towards a Gold Fury. This is their traditional pathing towards it, trying to find the oracles, establish that vision dominance, and see what happens on the map.
Fighting around the left-hand side now, both of these teams still just clearing the neutrals, but Emilzi going forward, trying to find a little bit of poke. Gonna find a little bit more than he bargained for there. Those vampiric bats from Rapio are starting to do a lot of damage, and no wonder he's starting to build into this transcendence in the jungle. Now that is a throwback to what, early season 7?
early Season 7 Transcendence jungles, and for the last couple of days we've been seeing it a fair bit. Rapio, a huge proponent of this build, and he's going to be benefiting for it considering the pace that we've seen so far. Transcendence has a slight buff to it recently, a little bit more cheap, a little easier to slot into the build, and with the slow pace of this match, going to have plenty of time to stack it up this time around. I think Rapio is looking for that one-shot style. Wouldn't be overly surprised if we see Brawler's Beat Stick in the next slot, immediately followed by maybe even a Heartseeker, and when that happens, Joshi better keep his eyes peeled.
It's going to be hard for him as well. That dash is an instant. Emilzy once again blinking forward, finding himself with a lot of space between him and the rest of his team. These blink engages seem a little distant here from Emilzy. Silenced could be in some trouble, but goes underneath the waters. The piercing moonlight coming through. They're committing a lot into this kill, and they are able to pick it up. And now 2 in the dishwasher. Beads forced from Pretty Prime, but throwing Kha'Zix back towards the side. Pretty Prime able to find in that disapparate form and get out. Joshi, though, does fall down, and Connor could be in some trouble here as well. Leaping forward is Rapio, finds 2. Sarpei, the next one on the Bats hit list. Still rushing forward, trying to find it. Avoids out the stun from Sarpei, and the damage is going to be good. Triple kill for Rapio. Emilzy still in the back line, finds Kha'Zix, but this could be a potential quadra here. If Rapio doesn't pick it up, somebody else will. It'll be Vaporish 4-for-1 trade. Pandemonium, what went wrong?
Maybe it was just a little bit overzealous. Maybe they had committed a little bit too much to that engagement. They really did try absolutely everything that they could to force that fight, and eventually, Snakehunter say, okay, well, you're between my towers. I guess I'm willing to take that fight now. Vaporish Coast joins the engagement and completely turns it around for his team. And now the kills stand 5-5 at the 12-minute mark. This is almost a reversal of what you'd expect to see in a Game 3 situation with a $10,000 on the line, your tournament life on the line. Generally, teams would play a little bit slower, but this has been a much faster pace than we've been used to seeing, at least throughout the early game. And for now, Snakehunter is benefiting from that last engagement. What was 2,000 gold in favor of Pandemonium is immediately cut to below quadruple digits.
And now with Rapio sat, what is that, 2 levels above his counterpart, Sarpei could be in a little bit of a dangerous spot. Tsukiyomi does not super do well from behind, has to have that at least evenness to be able to stick around in these fights after using that piercing moonlight. We'll need to see him catch up a little bit if he wants to fight in here. Meanwhile, the Rapio looks dangerous here. Emilzy coming in once again, but still a little bit far away from the rest of his team. Silenced with the tail whip is going to cancel out that aggression, though.
It feels like, to me, Pandemonium are playing a little bit frustrated right now, not happy with how the engagements have been panning out, but still unwilling to stop looking for him. Instead, going to continually try and find that pressure. Emilzy jumping in there, trying to find the route. We've been seeing these very interesting blink forwards where maybe his team isn't quite in range to follow up either, and Snake Hunters have been playing a much more reactive style. I think they're very willing to go for that traditional EU SCC style where they play it for the late game, wait till that 30-minute mark to group up. Rapio going for a bit of a cheeky Pyromancer start there, gets spotted out and is forced to reset.
Now, Mifflin, both of these teams have been super competitive throughout the year. Snake Hunters and Pandemonium have played twice, and they've gone 1-1 with in terms of sets, with a 3-2 game difference between them now sitting in this basically finals, right? This is the losers bracket finals, we can call them that. They're actually set 4-3 at the moment. Pandemonium able to close up that gap. But Snake Hunters bringing it back. Do you think that Pandemonium can push this through? They're looking a little frustrated.
I think they certainly can. I mean, their late game team fight might be slightly unfavored, but it's not so bad that they lose out based on draft alone. If anything, maybe a 6-4 matchup if this game goes completely even at the 40-minute mark, but they do have a distinct advantage at this point of the game. They cannot allow things like this to happen. If Snake Hunters get to sneak away with objectives, I mean, that's completely losing your point of interaction, and Snake Hunters do sneak away with this one this time around. Emilzy, the only one in range to defend, and what can a lone Jingchen do?
These blinks from Emilzy still going super far from his team. This time, though, with good cause. Not able to find the Pyromancer, but I like the idea from him. Now, Snake Hunters starting to get their feet underneath them here. The last 10 or so minutes in the... Sorry, the last 7 or so minutes in this game, they've really started to come back into their own, minimizing this lead. It was 2,000, then it was 1,000. Now, it's only around 800 or so. And with this Gold Fury getting started up here, could it go even less? Streak Up goes up into that Centaurus, looking to force them away from it. Gold Fury still a half HP, but Snake Hunters want to keep looking for this fight. Silenced, already falling low. He's going to take a spill. Sarpei claims credit for that kill. Potentially a Gold Fury in favor of Pandemonium this time.
A great start to that fight. That is the 5th time in a row we've seen Pandemonium engage on a Sobek, and maybe the first time it's really panned out for him in a great way. Now, Silence dead for the next 15 seconds, but Pandemonium haven't used so much to kill off that support. Do not feel confident enough to stick around on the objective itself, especially considering Vaporish Coast was able to full heal with his Aussie off of that wave. So it does just turn into a 1-for-none in favor of Pandemonium, but I'm concerned, Blazy. This pace certainly going to be benefiting the Snake Hunters.
Absolutely. If Pretty Prime can get to this late game position, if Vaporish can get to this late game position, hell, if Rapio can get to this late game position, which arguably he basically is level 17, 2 above Sarpei still, and has been since that triple kill, it's going to be very difficult for Pandemonium to fight back into it. But what are the steps that they can take to start doing so?
They can start to try and at least generate threat on the map. So far, we've seen Pandemonium is incredibly willing to take engagements. They've been looking for fights. It hasn't been for lack of trying that the kills have slowed down, but maybe try and bring a little bit of nuance here engagements. Force Snake Hunters to approach you. We could have Pandemonium group up on the Gold Fury, and then force Snake Hunters to try and put up a defense, look for an engagement that way. Very similar to the plan that they had back in Game 2 around their Ymir.
Hopefully they can do a little bit of that. Emilzy still looking for these fights. Devlin, why is Emilzy been playing so far forward? So many of these engagements we've seen, he's blinked way past the distance that his mid laner and jungle can cover in any sort of reasonable time.
I gotta think it's just a miscommunication on positioning, or he doesn't realize exactly how much range Joshi has on this Raijin, or something along those lines. Outside of that, the reason he's been looking to play aggressive is simply because Jing Shen is capable of it. It has so much HP 5 inside the passive, so much survivability inside the kit that he's really able to commit his body to just about anything that he wants, because it's going to take a very large concentrated effort from the Snake Hunters to shut him down on these engagements. So he's utilizing that safety, but maybe a little bit overexcited to do so, getting in there a little bit too early, a little bit too far ahead of the rest of his team.
Well, he's 2-1-4 at the moment, so it's not going devastatingly for him, but it's definitely not been the best in these team fights overall. Now Snake Hunters once again looking to group up around the Gold Fury. All 5 members are here. Meanwhile, Connor still trailing behind in the mid lane at the moment, but Pandemonium apparently are threatening enough. Snake Hunters not really ready to commit to this Fury just yet. Connor able to make his way back and rejoin his team. Rapio just pushing out a wave in the left-hand side, and I guess Snake Hunters just got cold feet.
Yeah, not this time. Don't want to take in a tried and true 5-on-5 engagement. Instead, seeing if maybe someone on the side of Pandemonium will step too far forward. And so far, it's been a good strategy from Snake Hunters. Blink Gate from Eye Silence finds Kana, putting him slightly out of position and dropping him down to 70% HP for their efforts. And it's still Kana getting aggressive. Kazakh's clipping him with a stun.
Here comes Emilzy blinking forward. The washing machine's going to come through, but nobody's going to get hit by it. Meanwhile, Kozik's going to show his stuff. 3 sets of beads forced there by the doggo. He's angry. He's looking for some blood. Connor now leaping in, looking to find his own form of aggression. Kozik's is seemingly the target of all this aggression. It's going to work out for them so far. He's going to be the first person to fall now. Up into the sky goes Rapio, looking to find a little bit more damage. Sarpei could be in some danger, but first, Wonderful will be Vaporish Coast. He's not going to be having too much fun there. Sarpei going to take a spill as well. Joshi claiming credit for the life of the jungler for Snake Hunters, and Emilzy barely holding on to his life there after trading out for Silence. Prime, last man left standing, but not for long. Deicide for Pandemonium.
Legitimately flabbergasted when I saw Eye Silence walk back up to that engagement. It essentially turns around the corner, says, hey, what's going on? And then dies. I mean, he walked up at 1/10 HP to immediately lose out on that one, but that's not the reason Snake Hunters lost the fight itself. It's a matter of grouping. We saw once Snake Hunters took that engagement, they all went to the wind, man. It carried them all in separate directions, whereas Pandemonium remained grouped up. There was a 5-man core that at no point separated from each other, and that death ball worked out for them.
And now Pandemonium in a beautiful spot to take the first fire giant of the game here, 21 minutes in. Should be pretty uncontested. No one from the Snake Hunters should be able to get here in time, and there are plenty of towers around the map for Pandemonium to start flexing this fire giant power play that they have now. One tower still standing on the left-hand side, and 2 in either of the other lanes. I don't think we'll potentially see a Phoenix here, though, until maybe another good fight.
It depends on how we see the Snake Hunters put up their defense. If they lose lives trying to defend tier 2s, that could open up the door to the Phoenix. It's a dependent on, I'm going to use a tacoism here, risk and reward. Are they willing to try and take the fight? If Snake Hunters win out, they could keep some of their towers up. If they lose out, they risk losing a Phoenix. If they don't show up to the fight whatsoever, I don't think there's any risk of them losing a Phoenix going forward. So we'll see how they elect to go for it. Pandemonium, however, have pretty good siege potential. I mean, Tsukiyomi, unsung hero on sieges, just has infinite range on his auto attacks as a melee god. Somehow, Streak Up going to be able to very easily use his ultimate to separate these engagements, almost like how we saw Rom utilize his ultimate back in Season 7. Initiate the fight with it, choose your target, and force someone out of the fight. And then we've already seen the damage output that Joshi has from an incredibly far range. It's going to be very difficult for the Snake Hunters to put up a defense. I imagine if this does come to a Phoenix Siege, we're going to see Kha'Zix blink forward and go for the all-in as a form of defense.
Well, 2 people showing up on the tier 2 tower on the right-hand side is going to give Pandemonium the go-ahead that they wanted to try and look for this Phoenix, and already it's falling pretty low. Josh is really far up here under this tower, already forced back, but the Phoenix is down. That's a big pickup for Pandemonium, and now looking for the re-engage. Prime is going to fall. Silence could be right next with him. The stun's going to be good, but 3 people get picked up here by Kha'Zix. Rapio is going to find sub-pace, so that's going to be 1 down on either side of Mealsy now in a little bit of trouble.
Huge cleanse!
Ladies and gents, we are sorry for that quick pause, but Mifflin, I'm sorry that I cut you off there before. What were you going to say, my friend?
Well, I was just going to talk about how the cleanse that we saw on Vaporish Coast Ultimate from Streak Up onto Emilzy was really sick, and that's like maybe 0.5 seconds of interaction that you can really do, but we don't need to worry about all that. That was just small fill your air type stuff on a pause. Instead, now we can focus back in on what the siege is going to look like. Only 2 members for Pandemonium with Fire Giant, but Kha'Zix caught out immediately by Emilzy on the blink forward.
Damage isn't going to be good enough so far from Pandemonium, but the taunts back in from the Drums of War are going to seal the deal. Vaporish takes pretty much all of those shots from Chiron, but now it's Emilzy taking too much damage from the tower. Up into the sky is the bat out of hell. Emilzy still trying to run away, and he is going to find his way out on the back. So far, so good for Pandemonium. Although Sarpei and Emilzy are forced away, they do get a pick out onto Kha'Zix. And with only about a minute left on this FG, that should, or could, potentially be a big pick.
Yeah, Fire Giant gonna be spawning in about 30 seconds here. Snake Hunters gonna have to take this engagement at a disadvantage, at least for the first 15 or so seconds after Kha'Zix respawns. Gotta take into account travel time as well from base towards the center of the map. Pandemonium doing a good job of optimizing their game. Keep your eye on that left-hand side. Fire Waves already starting to work their way deep onto the Snake Hunter side of the map. Someone likely going to have to go deal with that before the Fire Giant spawns in earnest. And it might just be Pretty Prime's job just because he's the closest one to it.
Absolutely, yeah, and that's exactly what's going to happen. He's moving towards this left-hand side, clearing out these Fire Waves. He's going to have to stick over there for a little bit, though. Well, no, he's decided to move his way back over towards the engagement, but there's still another Fire Wave right behind it. They're going to still lose this Phoenix, but nobody else wants to back, but I guess that's the call from Pandemonium. FG, already half HP here from the Snake Hunters, but the engagement is looking to go the way of Pandemonium. Kha'Zix uses 2, but gets the beads. He's gonna fall down. Next up is Vaporish. Goodbye. And finally, Rapio here in this fight, looking to fight into 3 members here, and Sarpei is gonna be the one down. Joshi seeking on 1 HP. Silence is gonna finish him off with the plug, but Rapio is gonna fall down and trade Streak Up 1 HP in the back line here. Nowhere left to go. Snake Hunters do lose their left side Phoenix, but they hold on to this Fire Giant for now because there is no way Pandemonium are able to secure it.
We got the worst of both worlds there from Pretty Prime. Too late to join the engagement, but doesn't stick around long enough on the defense to maintain the left side Phoenix base. Already being exposed by the Fire Minion Waves. All they have to do, that is Pandemonium, all they have to do is keep Snake Hunters here. Pretty Prime now the target of aggression. Emilzy and Kana on the chase. Nobody looking at Eye Silence because we don't care about Sobex. He dies as an afterthought, caught in the crossfire. Kana picking up that kill. Easy backup now for Pandemonium. Head to base, get ready, regroup on the fire.
Emilzy left alone has to use that shout to push Prime away. Prime doesn't quite have the knowledge, I don't think, that everyone else on the Pandemonium side has back. So, plays it safe, doesn't choose to go in for Emilzy, but that could have been an easy pickup there for the Soul. Meanwhile, Silence, the only man not on the map at the moment, sitting looking at a grayscale screen. Meanwhile, Connor and Streak Up starting up this Fire Giant, and no one from the Snake Hunters seems to really care about it, Mifflin. They're not here. I guess they're just choosing to leave this one be and try and defend the base because it's already down. Pandemonium have a huge advantage here.
They sure do, and they've got plenty of towers left to work their way through as well. 2 tier 2s still standing for the Snake Hunters, and it might as well be 2 tall pieces of wet paper because that's how quickly they're going to burn away once they're under the ire of Pandemonium. It's going to come down to who shows up on the defense first. Snake Hunters, again, very slow on their backs. Tier 2 is going to go down for free. It is going to come down to just the Phoenix itself. And the defense is going to look largely the same as last time. Expect the Snake Hunters to commit themselves fully to the engagement. I'm expecting a blink forward from Kha'Zix. I'm expecting the exact same thing from Rapio as well. And if they can't win out, find their pick on the initial engagement, I mean, I'm not sure that they can defend their base.
Well, it's going to be a hard one for them. Snake Hunters do have everything available to them, though. Only a couple sets of beads, and, well, both of Pretty Prime's relics here unavailable. Pandemonium have plenty of time to play with. Left-hand side is currently being held up by Rapio. Maybe they could use that objective, that knowledge of his positioning to try and push into this fight, but two members of Pandemonium choose to go into that mid side, potentially call for a tower there that never happened, but Pandemonium just looking for a little bit more poke. Connor trying to play with his food a little bit, so is Emilzy, just waiting for this next wave.
Once we see Rapio show himself on the map on this left-hand side, that is going to act as a signal for Pandemonium. Then they can start to get involved, and that's exactly what happens. Emilzy in first, just looking to poke out the back line, finds Kha'Zix, forces the beads.
That's already a huge pickup. Connor taking a bit of damage here, though. No one gets hit by Kha'Zix's ult. And no, he's dead before he even hits the ground. Connor claims credit for that kill. And now up into the Centaurus form goes Streak Up. Hits Vaporish once, but it's going to be all she wrote for that. Now with a man down, this Phoenix should be pretty free. And Mifflin, the Titan's already at half HP from these fire waves coming in from left. Pandemonium don't really need to go for this left mid-side Phoenix rather. Connor's going straight in, and the damage should be good on the Titan. The fight is irrelevant. Pandemonium end up the set, close out their rivalry with Snake Hunters, put their flag in the ground and say, we are going to the finals.
Congratulations to Pandemonium putting $10,000 into their collective team pocket and earned themselves the chance to stack up against Elysium in the finals. They will be going in with a one-game disadvantage, but look, Blazy, if they're going to keep playing this well, if they're going to play this insistent on that aggressive style, I think Elysium might have a tough battle ahead of them.
Absolutely, but Elysium themselves, no pushovers. They are the top team on this side of the league for a reason, Mifflin. They made it to finals without having to go through the losers side of the bracket, and they will be getting that free game slashed onto the belt for them at the start of the next set. But we won't talk about the next set just yet. We'll let the analyst desk break it down after these messages.
Pandemonium turned things around here in game number 3, punched their ticket on to the grand finals of the EU SCC playoffs, and grabbed themselves $10,000 extra over what they would have made for third place. The Snake Hunters going home with $7,500. Not too bad there. At least $17,500 now for Pandemonium. A chance at $30,000 if they're able to take the finals over Elysium. Great showing, though, in game number 3, Taco, from this Pandemonium team. Maybe gives you a little more confidence against some of their chances against Elysium here in the next set.
Good gameplay rewarded with a nice little bracket pump of extra cash for the team. I'm sure the Pandemonium guys are probably pretty satisfied with the fact, but the satisfaction doesn't end just yet, Dulcin. As you already mentioned, their reward on top of the 10K is also having to deal with Elysium for a shot at the finals to see who really gets to come out on top. And Elysium, having gotten the better end of Pandemonium one time already, you can be sure that they're still going to be looking for a chance for revenge.
Should be some fireworks, to be sure, in the grand finals. But looking back at game number 3 here, back and forth affair. Look, I mean, 10-6 in kills, 20 minutes in. Kana felt pretty unstoppable on this Osiris at points throughout this game. And then Street Cup got this Chiron. It was the first time in this set that we got to see Chiron. Definitely had its impact. And you figured that this jungle pick for Sarpé would have an impact as well, and I think it was a driving force for Pandemonium.
It just helped boost that follow-up of the heavy burst damage, because whatever Joshi and Streak Up weren't able to finish off with their ultimates or just their ability damage in general on the Chiron and Raijin, you just have the Tsukiyumi as that final killing blow.
Yep.
Really hard to evade that ability, and unless the Aegises haven't already been expended, which they likely are, for Snake Hunters to be on the back heel running already, it just made a lot of openings there, I think, for Sarpé. Kana did an excellent job alongside of Emilzi. Everybody just kind of doing their part to make this effort work.
Yeah, it was kind of the opposite of Snake Hunters, who had Rapio with like 8 kills and everyone else really didn't get much going. Felt like everyone was kind of evenly spread for Pandemonium there in game number 3. And that's probably the best case scenario, right? Because you look at their opponents in Elysium, and we'll really dive into that in the pregame in just a few minutes. That's the type of game you have to play to have a chance against Elysium.
You definitely want to have clear and concise victories, because you know for a fact that Elysium is going to be a team that plays to that standard, Dulcin, of just borderline professional play, if not professional play levels, given some of the talent that is on that Elysium roster, most notably adapting in that jungle position. He just kind of elevates the other 9 players around him, I think, because you know exactly what you're competing with.
Yeah, you got to bring the best to beat the best, and that's what it's going to take here. One final game remaining here in the bracket. It is a best of 5 in the finals. And Elysium, they didn't lose this weekend, not in any sets at least, so they get that 1-game advantage in the best of 5. So they could simplify it down, Elysium could, to a best of 3 if they're able to win the first 2 games in that set. A back-and-forth weekend of EU SCC action. Elysium, to start things off, actually dropped a game to Snake Hunters. That only one other 3-game set was the one that we just saw here. So it all culminates in one final matchup, Elysium versus Pandemonium. Again, Taco, we'll dive a little bit more into Elysium and what they're going to bring today just after this break. Do you give Elysium the edge, though, in this matchup? Just on paper, you give the winner's bracket team the edge over Pandemonium?
On paper, it'd almost be impossible not to. Given the talent that is on this roster, and given the fact that they do have that 1-game leading advantage. But that's to be expected as well for a team that has run their circuit through the winner's bracket. It's only fair in my mind for them to have that 1-game advantage, especially when you consider that the team they're playing against, they're making their run through the loser's bracket, so they're on their second life already.
That's right. Well, look, Elysium, Tarum adapting, Angry, Spudio, and Trix Tank. They await Pandemonium in the grand finals of the EU SCC playoffs right after this.